What's up, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and I am joined by my yin to my yang. There we go, my yin to my yang. Crushing Crisis. How are you, dude?
I am well. I am completing my week of marathon streaming with something that you and I have been waiting to do for quite some time, which is to get super explainy experts on this blue and gold. But in the meantime, I'm always at crushingcrisis.com and Crushing Crisis on YouTube, where I've been doing live shows about weekly polls. I read 45 polls this week, Omar. 45.
You are a madman. On top of that, he did this amazing slideshow that will simplify things for people. Is Warren mapping X books in the chat? What's that? Are we going to invite Warren to one of our maps?
I would love to be on a stream with Warren. Can we put that on my wish list for 2025?
How is everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing well. We're here to answer a lot of questions that I've been seeing pop up and clarify some things and just kind of try to help guide people in the direction that I would appreciate guidance like this if I was a beginner and just getting X-Men titles, right, in omnibus format or an oversized hardcover format. Would be nice if Marvel would reveal an editorial plan so we wouldn't have to guess in which ways we are going to be collected. Panini, who publishes Marvel in Spanish, does year in advance plans. Unfortunately, that's not the way most publishers in America work. I don't think there is a single publisher here that tells you their plans for anything outside of, what is it now? I think 9 months ahead of time is what they usually do for the catalog, and that's about all we get. We don't know when trade paperback versions of hardcovers are coming out, and that's from the pros angle. We don't know when deluxe editions are coming out for trade paperbacks and things like that. This is just not the way they work, unfortunately. So we're trying to do our best to try to come up with different routes. Mutant Massacre map style. We need more X-Men content. Right. What's up, Kenny? How are you? About to start reading X-Men for the first time. Good timing. Good.
Whoa.
I hope you like it, Mr. Horse.
It's a very special time in your life, and it only happens once.
No, sir. I didn't like it. That is a quote from Mr. Horse. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's go, all frozen people. Ooh, it is cold here. Hola desde Callao. Mi papá nació en Callao, hermano. And this is the Crushing Crisis website. Thank you so much. Marathon streaming. Sounds like my current Daredevil rewatch. Ooh, I need to jump on that because I'm so excited for Born Again. Crushing Crisis is better than Near Mint Condition. Thank you for that, right? I agree. He is. It's good at certain things except X-Men. Right. Peter plus Omar, 99% of. Oh, thank you, Tree, formerly known as Mike. You ain't my friend. You can't make jokes like that. Track Sui. I can't even say your name. Very fine condition. You must be an Omni lad. Is that what he calls? No, Omni pups. I don't know what Jess calls people over there in his ridiculous channel. First things first, let's hear about how we should not buy the Decimation Omnibus. Decimation Omnibus, I mean, we could get started anywhere, but Peter has prepared a beautiful slideshow. Decimation Omnibus, I think, is the only place you're going to get things like Generation M. You're going to get the Sentinels 1 miniseries collected in there. You're going to get the finishing up the District X storyline that Hines started. I don't think of any, well, I guess unless they do a District X collection one day, but I don't think there's even a demand for any of that. Do even most people remember that era? And I liked it. Hello, my favorite YouTubers. News on the new box set. You know, somebody asked me on Saturday. I said I forgot to ask. Gosh dang it. I promise I will ask. Thank you for the super chat. Joe, what's up? We saved your day. My G.I. Joe box set's out for delivery. Watching these. See, I think they're doing it in alphabetical order, John. I'm stuck in V's, man. I ain't getting mine until like June, maybe. X-Men by Bendis Omnibus should include Battle of the Atom. And when will Black Vortex be collected in an Omni? Dear Guardians of the Galaxy. Actually, no, it takes place before Guardians of the Galaxy 2. There are a lot of thoughts about Battle of the Atom. Despite my personal taste in X-Men, I also have thoughts about Battle of the Atom and the all-new X-Men Omnibus. And, of course, I don't mind asking things.
Totally unsolicited. I don't even think I've even hung out with Omar since that announcement went out. But to me, the announcement of all new X-Men Omnibus seems to indicate that there's going to be maybe an Uncanny X-Men Omnibus at some point if it sells well. And I think you put Battle of the Atom in that one because Uncanny had less issues. And as for Black Vortex, the whole structure of Black Vortex was such that you didn't have to read it all sequentially. Each of the individual series and all of the trades collected the individual issues, and there was just one collected OHC. So I think that ship has long sailed. I don't think we're ever going to see an omnibus with all of it, unless we get a Guardians of the Galaxy companion omnibus that has Star-Lord and Rocket and all that. So then I think all of Black Vortex would be in that. So I think personally, I was team mush Uncanny X-Men and all new X-Men together. But since that I was the losing team and this is what we got, I actually think that map for all new X-Men is fine. I think Battle of the Atom will wind up in the other book.
In Uncanny? We shall see. We shall see.
No,
is every Uncanny X-Men collected in omnibus? No, it's not. Hey, Steven, Omar, any idea where we might be a new printing of the Wolverine Omni? I haven't seen that shown up, but I will be happy to remind them when our reprint poll goes up. I want to shout Factory to put Generation X TV movie on Blu-ray with the Power Pack pilot as an extra, but Marvel probably won't allow it. I kind of like that movie. I remember skipping work to go and watch that. You got your G.I. Joe set 2 weeks ago, though? And your last name starts with a W? I hate you even more now, Ryan Wilson. What's up, Joe? How are you? Lots of thoughts is always a code. God, I love Uncanny by Bendis. You know, that video that, as the guy that gets to see everything, right? The likes, the dislikes, the comments. That video of all new X-Men, holy crud. There's a lot of you crazy people that have been waiting for that book. I don't know if that necessarily equals sales, right? I don't know if there is a connection. Maybe there is. Agent Van Omnibus, that announcement, the same thing. Like, lots of people were happy about that. And lots of people were happy about all new X-Men. I had no idea that there was such a fan base for that era of X-Men. Because, you know, my thoughts on that era. I would so buy Gen X. Nice shirt. Thank you, Marcelo. Hope you're doing well. Didn't see a name for the person who asked, but there's a few issues of Uncanny X-Men from the 90s that haven't been collected and reprinted at all. There's a lot that haven't been printed in omnibus format.
In omnibus, every issue of Uncanny X-Men has been reprinted, period.
In trade paper.
Not in omnibus.
Not in omnibus, yeah. He wanted to know in omnibus format. I want an Uncanny X-Men Omni by Gilling. Gosh darn it. I do as well, but how would you map that? That's the question. Like, would you get his Uncanny and then jump into Krakoa?
No, he's got plenty of Uncanny for one whole book. You would just start it directly after Second Coming with the Quarantine and the New Lights arc, because even though Fraction was the head writer, Gillen, it was later revealed, had been co-plotting with Fraction. So the Fraction omnibuses would just conclude with Second Coming, and then a Gillen omnibus would pick up from 526 collect to 544, including the 3-part annual story with Namor and Cat Steve Rogers, and then the 20 issues of Uncanny X-Men that followed. You'd probably also throw in X Club and the Magneto miniseries and AVX Consequences. So it's a big book.
Yep.
Yeah.
Phalanx Covenant has no reprint, correct. It's only been printed one time. Matt Frewer was a great villain in the Gen X film. Was that Max Headroom? It was. What's up?
And you know, I have a core memory of that movie of when they reveal Husk is like super strong, and I think they just got this male bodied bodybuilder to like shoot from behind and just put a terrible wig on the back of the bodybuilder. And I just remember the scenes of like these big shoulders with like the cheap wig. And then she turns around and it's the actress and she's like, "What are you looking at?" And I always remember that.
Man, she was a hunk in the Gen X movie. I remember Emma. And it was a little bit older Emma too. Okay, so what we're going to start with, people are asking about what era. We're going to start with, we're actually going to be talking primarily, and then of course talking about future mappings and things like that, with the newly announced about a month ago, the X-Men Gold and Blue omnibus that's coming out. It's that era that we're going to be talking about, because what Blue and Gold collects and what it means, and because we also have a Fatal Attractions omnibus. Okay, so to clarify, that Fatal Attractions omnibus was never an omnibus. It was a OHC. They're reprinting it with an omnibus label on it. I bought my
and we'll get into that.
X-Men Omnibus today. X-Factor Volume 1, X-23 Volume 1, and Extreme X-Men Volume 1. Well, you made some really good choices. Michael Turner, Kara Zor-El. Those are good. Oh, man. Yeah, there's something really... Woo! Yes. So Pizza Hut X-Men, basically.
I
No,
would do unspeakable things to get those Pizza Hut comics collected. What do I have to do, Marvel?
You and my buddy News Pooey channel, I swear. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. Please feel free to screen grab. And if Peter allows, we can share this later on. Because I remember last time we did this, people were asking if there's a way we can share the slides because they're just meticulously well put together. Man, he really went all out. All right, so the mapping the future of X-Men. Looking a little bit. Thank you to Dom of X for putting the thumbnail together for us. Yeah, there were Pizza Hut comics, man. Yeah, they weren't great. They were pizza.
But you need them. So go on eBay right now. There was
upcoming Fatal Attractions Omnibus. Wait, I already announced that, didn't I? It's been delayed.
You definitely announced it. I definitely knew that it existed.
It's coming out next month. All right, let's go to the first one. So this is what we know, right? We know X-Men Blue and Gold, Mutant Genesis is coming out. And the idea behind this, how this all got started is every year I let my Patreons vote for what next oversized hardcover that's out of print they would like to see reprinted. And let me tell you, it's always X-Men. So I always put X-Men up there. It's never been like Spider-Man and things like that over the years. So the previous year was, 2 years ago, I'm sorry, was Extinction Agenda and Days of Future Past. That OHC contained Days of Future Present. Put both of them together, and that's how we got the Extinction Agenda Omnibus. Wow. Plus, they added a bunch of stuff. One misprinted page, by the way. Thank you to one of my viewers who told me about the very, very much collected Kings of Pain storyline, but still, there's one misprinted page. Now, X-Men Blue and Gold was, I pitched the idea of, hey, why don't we put Bishop's Crossing together with Executioner's Song? And it took them, I think this was about a year and a half ago, and it took them, I announced this about a month after I knew about it. What they did was, instead of putting both of those OHCs together, which, by the way, if you're an X-Men reader in chronological order, and I'm sure Peter already has this somewhere down the line, it will fit smoothly after the X-Men by Chris Claremont was Portasio, Bishop's Crossing, and Executioner's Song. But what they did was include the first few issues, well, all the way up until issue number 13 of Adjectiveless X-Men. And then with Uncanny, they went with Bishop's Crossing, that mapping of Bishop's Crossing, and went all the way to 297. Plus, of course, you get the X-Factor issues, and then material from the Annual 7, which is the Shatter Shot. And people were confused. Didn't we already have a Shatter Shot? And I think that is the confusion when it comes to the titles of these OHCs. We had a Shatter Shot oversized hardcover, but that story didn't belong with that collection. I feel like, and I'm aging myself here, I feel like that's keeping Johnny Depp in 21 Jump Street for season, all the way through season 2, I think, and then putting him on the cover of season 3 because you kept 2 episodes from season 2 for the season 3 DVD.
Oh, there's a reference all the youths will get. Omar,
Okay.
good job. Very relevant.
People on
Totally
their
of the
TikTok,
know.
they got TikTok back. They're not watching. So we got that because it was, hey, we have these leftover Jim Lee stories we didn't collect with any of the OHCs. Why don't we make an omnibus, or I'm sorry, an oversized hardcover out of it? And that's how we got Shatter Shot. It's like those issues left behind. A lot of Adjectiveless X-Men. So this, we don't, that's the thing. That's what we're going to talk about. We won't get a Claremont and Lee Omnibus Volume 2 reprint for a long time. No, they reprint what you all have been asking for, right? Or as close to it when they don't slow down reprints to what you all ask for. Doesn't matter. I mean, we know it doesn't matter. Look at the release window of Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 5 and then the Prelude to the Massacre or Mutant Massacre Prelude, right? It doesn't matter. It's X-Men. People What was that? It's a 21 Jump Street version reference. And I ain't even talking about no damn new 21 Jump Street with Channing Tatum and that other guy, Jonah Hill. Those guys. I'm talking about the original. Anyway, back to this. Oh, you have? Okay, thank you. Thank you, G-Roy. I appreciate that. One of you all have heard. Too young to understand, yeah. All right, so that's how we ended up getting Shattershot. So now we're talking about this. This is the new book. So in case you're missing Bishop's Crossing and in case you were missing the Executioner song, this is the omnibus. It's an actual omnibus now. It will have the omnibus label on it that is replacing both of those books. So the question is, wait a second. They're also reprinting Fatal Attractions next month. It's coming out in March. But it's missing, I believe, issues 17 through 24 of Adjectiveless X-Men and annual number 2. Which was collected in that Shattershot oversized hardcover. So what is
now?
That
we're getting complicated. Now the Galaxy Brains take starts happening.
Yeah, now now it's like, wait a second. Now what do we do? Now do I wait for the inevitable X-Men Blue and Gold Volume 2? Because I mean, let's face it, X-Men Blue and Gold, Jim Lee on the covers, those things are going to sell, and I'm sure they'll do a Volume 2 one day. But do you wait for that? You get Fatal Attractions now. How long is it going to be? Like, I don't know. And I don't even know, like, if they're doing that. I'm just hypothetically speaking.
Well, let's get into it.
All right. So this is what Peter has put together. This is the actual omnibus that I announced. I don't think it's up for pre-order quite yet. I think it has to show up in the solicits first, which will be coming here in at the end of this week, maybe. So your comic book stores or your online retailer might be able to pre-order then. All right, take it away, Peter.
All right, so what we want to do, we've seen all the questions that have come up in the last month and all the mapping theories that are already happening in the chat right now. Hello, Minties. So Omar and I put this together to try to address really every single question everybody has about this. And we got to start with this thing that Omar and I say a lot, which is that we a lot of times refer to the existing X-Men oversized hardcovers as an event line. So what do we mean when we're talking about an event line of oversized hardcovers? Back in 2010, Marvel started putting out X-Men in oversized hardcover. Before that, there had only really been Uncanny X-Men Volume 1 Omnibus. And in 2010, it began with X-Men Mutant Massacre in OHC. And so Marvel began to collect X-Men line-wide events in color for the first time. And they were not initially called omnibus. That's why a lot of us have things like the original Inferno book or the original Fall of the Mutants that don't say omnibus. The original Fall of the Mutants had the Marvel logo like this thick because it was as big as an omnibus, and the Marvel logo didn't look right stretched, but that's what we got. Then, in the midst of doing all that, Marvel released the pair that we've already been talking about of Claremont and Lee Volume 1 and 2 omnibuses, and they fit in pretty much perfectly, stuck right in the middle of that lineup of oversized hardcovers. They fit exactly after Inferno and Atlantis Attacks, if you're Atlantis curious, and then they skipped over the Extinction Agenda in the middle, and then they ran right up until the end of Claremontron and actually a bit behind it or beyond it, but not all the way to this book. And none of those books that happened over that whole decade took into account Masterworks mapping, because Masterworks hadn't gotten that far yet. That's a pretty new phenomenon.
Years away from any of this still.
Yeah, and they didn't take into account Epic Collections. Epic Collections didn't start until, 2014? End of 2013? Beginning of 2014? Omar?
Epic Collections was 2014. Last year,
yeah,
their 10th anniversary.
And it was a while before the X-Men epics even started to play in this arena at all. We didn't even get into post Claremont X-Men epics until the last couple of years. So there was no other mapping to base these on. And that's why we call it the event line, because the mapping was super dictated by what books tied into what events.
And to one of the things publishers learned early on with trade paperbacks, long before there were anything like omnibus editions or the OHC's line, is that events always sold. So if you put an event, I mean, if you look back at the 90s and you look at some of the DC trade paperbacks, as we called them back then, not graphic novels or collected editions, they had Death of Superman, they had the Return of Superman, they had the Reign of Superman, they had the Batman Nightfall, and of course we had our own at Marvel Comics too. We had like Executioner song, Extinction Agenda. I remember Extinction Agenda. I didn't know what a trade paperback was when I found it. My comic book store didn't carry any of them. I knew of DC like trade paperbacks of Watchmen, but I was confused as to what the Extinction Agenda trade paperback was. And I ordered it through American. I can't remember the name of the company. It was a mail order thing. And I was like, oh, this has all of Extinction Agenda, because I wanted the gold cover. I was a collector of all X-Men. I wanted the gold covers, and I was like, this will have the gold. I thought it was like a bag of like Extinction Agenda comics, and it was a trade paperback. So even then, they knew that events sold. So their first like testing of the waters of oversized hardcovers were a lot of these events. A lot of classic.
Well, they hit the nostalgia button right squarely in the middle, right? Like, we all remember what all these were called. So, and they know who they're selling them to. Yeah.
You remember the Mutant Massacre? It was an oversized hardcover that only had the X-Men and like X-Factor issue. Didn't have all the other stuff that they mapped into the omnibus. So it was a really weird era. Like, so when we talk about that, that is almost like living in the Wild West of collected editions. It was like you got what you could. And what you could get wasn't a lot. And it mainly
that's why my whole site exists, because at the time it was about like you get what you could. I don't know how am I going to get issue 306. It seems like they skipped it. Like that there was no concept that every book was just going to perfectly line up and be totally inclusive. That is not an idea that existed to Marvel until very late in the 2010s and in, you know, almost pandemic era.
Thank you, James. That's what it was. It was the American Entertainment. Those were the ones that I used to order because my local comic book store didn't have. I hate you, John. You just had to rub it in my face. G.I. Joe has arrived. Boxes in hand. Suck it. I mean,
did you get the Joe version or the Cobra version?
John likes Iron Man. You know, he's mid. He got the G.I. Joe version.
Really? I'm going to say I think you got the Cobra version. All right, so let's go to the next slide, though, because we talked about all the good parts of this, but what were the bad parts? So one of the next questions is what mapping problems this idea of events cause, right? So because, as Omar and I just got into, event-based OHCs and Omnis focus just on events, they did not focus on gapless mapping. So on one hand, we have Bishop's Crossing, which is somewhere on some side of me here. Here we go. You can see all of the angles on my hair today. So Bishop's Crossing, we were so relieved to get when it came out because it plugged this gap of one of my favorite covers of all time. Because it plugged this gap in Uncanny X-Men up to Executioner's Song, right? And the contents we thought were almost perfect. It had all of Uncanny X-Men up until Executioner's Song, and it even collected the few little missing stories that weren't at the end of X-Men 1991 collected in the Claremont and Lee omnibus. But it's missing something. It's missing stories from the 1992 annuals, which had an all-annual story called Shattershot. That was the style of Marvel annuals for a few years, where they had small groups of annuals between 4 and 5 that had crossover stories in them. And Shattershot was this annual crossover stories in that year's annuals. But that's not the only one that had a problem. The Fatal Attractions OHC includes a later issue, 315, because it kind of sort of relates to Fatal Attractions, but it skips issue 306. Where is issue 306? It's in the Phalanx Covenant book. For some reason, it does make sense because it is an early story related to the Phalanx Covenant, but Marvel wasn't thinking in terms of gapless maps. They were just throwing, if there was an extra early issue or an extra late issue that made sense in a book, they did it. So we had all these great books, but these great books were missing stuff and causing our shelf to become more and more confusing.
And it's not and it's not in what I would call a reading order like we do now. Now we have the ability to actually have books on the shelf in a chronological order, and they're mapped in a good reading order, right? That's what we have now. What we had then was kind of like you're just getting a little bit of, if you were only getting X-Men or even Batman in trade paperback edition, you were only getting a little bit of the story. You would be jumping around a year, sometimes 2 or 3 years or 4 years if it's Batman. But now, because of the epic lines and because of the Marvel Masterworks, of course, who have laid the foundation for any of this in reading order, and the omnibus lines, which have just taken off like crazy, we do have choices. And my gosh, I'm so jealous of the people that are new to collecting Omnis. Like, if I could start over again, what I would get and not get. No, I'm still an idiot. I buy all the X-Men. What the hell am I
Yeah,
talking
somebody asked me if I'm going to get this. I said, of course I'm
about?
going to
all
get it.
over again.
So now we go to now that we kind of know the landscape that we're coming from, let's go to the next slide, which is the same contents of the blue and gold omnibus that we've all seen. Now we're going to get into the real explaining. So Omar did this verbally already, but if you want to stratify these contents and think about them in terms of what stories they go with, this new omnibus, this new omnibus actually crosses so many stories. It has Mutant Genesis, which is from the Claremont Lee Volume 2. Then it has Lee on X-Men, which is also from Claremont Lee Volume 2. Then it has the Bishop Crossing stories from Uncanny X-Men. Then it has the post-Lee X-Men, which is also in Bishop's Crossing. Then it's got the Shatterscott annuals, which fit during Bishop's Crossing, but were printed in their own separate book, Shatterscott. Yeah. Then it has Executioner's Song, and then it has these two other kind of supporting issues, which is hard to visualize. So we visualized it for you on the next slide.
Yes, the mapping is back. Oh, thank you so much, Peter. Longtime follower, first time posting, by the way. I'm so happy you all are doing the stream. Thank you for being here. We have so many choices. We have lots of choices. This is a really good question before we jump into this. Why do people always want to upgrade their OHCs to Omnis? Weren't those old OHCs better quality books, better paper stock, thickness, relatively speaking? I think it's case by case, honestly. And honestly, it depends on the kind of person you are. Do you need to save shelf space? I've seen that comment pop up. Like, people are like, well, this will actually, you know, these 4 OHCs are now in this omnibus, and the omnibus is slimmer, so I'm just going to get that and get more books. I actually did that myself with the Batman Nightfall. I know the new paper quality is not as good as the thick paper quality, but it gives me more room on my shelf. And then some people just like a uniform look to all of their books on the shelf. You know, it is really pretty. Like, if you have all the Masterworks, and then you have like one direct market version of the Masterwork that stands out like a sore thumb, you're like, oh, I need to replace it. Probably something like that. I really don't know. I think everybody comes from a different place, so maybe they can answer in the chat. Thank you so much, Simon James. What side do you guys use to check whether issues have previously been collected? I use Comic Books DB, but it's gone. Oh, you used to use League of Comics. Comic Geeks usually doesn't flag when we have been when they have been collected. Well, Peter could tell you a little bit about this small website he knows about.
Well, look, Simon, I agree. Comic Book DB was the best. And it was the best because it was no frills. It wasn't trying to really do a lot of advertising or community stuff. It was a database. That was why it was called DB. And it had a really good set of people keeping the wiki updated, because all these things live and die by wiki editors, right?
Yeah.
So now League is probably the closest, but I agree. People don't always, sometimes you can find the collection on there and the collection will have the contents, but they're not linked to the issues. And that's what really made Comic Book DB great. There are some other sites that are similar, but they have that same critical mass problem of not enough people care about the collections to do all the linking. There's comics.org. On a single issue basis, comics.org is by far the best container of information, but it's not the best for collections. There's also Comic Vine, which is like the Wild West. So unfortunately, there's just no good answer anymore. I'm not to self-plug, but this question is literally why my website exists. And I thought for a while, when we're getting into this epic era of everything being perfectly collected in perfect order, that I'm like, oh, my site's going to become a dinosaur. No one will need it anymore. No, not true, because none of the wikis have all of the information anymore the way that DB used to. And so, like, I feel like sometimes I'm the only site. I sometimes have to either buy the book or like go and get the digital copy preview and look in the indicia to figure it out, because nobody has the right information. And that's what keeps me up at night and kept me up until 2:30 a.m. last night. And then I woke up at 6:30 a.m. today to get ready for this show, because I'm a one person wiki band. But let's talk about this for a second, Omar. So I think this is what people have been missing, part of what people have been missing, when they're like, I don't understand what's in it, or like, why does it collect some things and not other things? And we're going to get into where the rest of those Shattershot issues could go. But this is what's in this blue and gold book. And you can see how many existing omnibuses and OHCs it crosses. And again, those Shattershot annuals happen during those Bishop's Crossing issues. They happen, I believe, between 287 and 288. I want to say it might be the next two, but I do have a note on that. So they're right in the thick of this stuff if they put them in reading order.
So that is something that I also forgot to mention, is that the collected editions editor working on X-Men specifically, you could tell we're fans of the stories and wanted to collect everything. But at that time they couldn't, because they didn't know about the sales, right? They didn't know how well something like X-Men Blue and Gold would sell. But if you put Jim Lee and Chris Claremont's name on it, it could. Or if you put something like Mutant Massacre, like an event, right? They could do it. And now we're at the time where they see that these books are selling, and now people want them in like the best reading order. And I feel like this is, I think in my announcement video, I even made that statement that, you know, Shattershot does belong here. It's just that they didn't have a place for it back then. And now we do have a place for it. But it is a little confusing with all these stories that are collected in X-Men by Claremont and Lee Volume 2, but not everything from that, because that still has the best X-Factor story, Endgame. But it does collect everything from the Bishop's Crossing and Executioner's Song, and then a little bit of the Shattershot OHC, which leaves orphaned issues from the Shattershot OHC, which people like me and whomever's out there watching, why we're keeping our Shattershot oversized hardcovers.
Well, we're going to get to that. But here's the thing. People are like, I don't know. It's kind of picking and choosing, whatever. Somebody in the chat, RB, just said Blue and Gold looks like a good book, but it's hard to decide whether to pick it up before knowing if Marvel plans to map books before or after appropriately. I know that it's hard to predict Marvel's frankly insane collection behavior, but we have a hint of that already, and it's on the next slide. Because as much as this book looks totally wacky compared to OHCs, it makes perfect sense if you compare it to Epic Collections. It is literally just collecting Epic Collections pretty much page for page with 2 tiny issues of bonus material. It's a straight up lift from the X-Men Epic Collections that Marvel's going off the Epic Collection map.
And I remember doing a video with Curtis and stating how jealous I was of the Epic folks, because that's how you map X-Men. You know, I see a lot of people saying they should have mapped the Bendis Uncanny and All New together. And I can kind of see that, because, you know, reading it, I guess I can see the difference, right? Like, I think it would sell better All New X-Men and then Uncanny X-Men by Bendis instead of X-Men by Bendis Volume 1 and 2. So maybe that's the reason why they decided to do it that way. But when we were doing the epics, I was looking at the mapping and I was like, oh my gosh, like Bishop's Crossing, like that mapping of that epic collection is perfection. It is that's how I would read it, and I judge perfection by how I read it as a kid until I was an adult, when I would go through my X-Men read-throughs. Like, you stop at a certain point, you stop after issue 3 to go and tell these stories, then you come back to find out the foundation of how the X-Men got split up into 2 groups to begin with. And that's the way they mapped it. And I was like, this is great, because I didn't want collected editions. To me, means giving somebody like the best reading experience they can have. It's not recreating the monthly journey to the comic book store and getting an issue of X-Men, getting an issue of X-Force, getting an issue of Uncanny, and doing it issue by issue. Like, you got an issue of Uncanny, you got an issue of X-Men. I like to give people, or I suggest to people, reading things in story arcs, because
I'm the same way.
Better reading experience. Yeah. So to me, that's what they're doing now. They're breaking them up into story arcs, and I love that. And I was so jealous of the freaking epics, because they didn't do that with OHCs, because we didn't know we were going to get one. You know, I had no idea. None of us had any idea this stuff was ever going to be collected like this. This is insanity. If you were to tell me, like, you know, 20 plus years ago when I started collecting these, that we'd have like 5 volumes leading up to Mutant Massacre, and then holy crap, that's just crazy.
Well, let's talk about, before we move on, so there's only 2 real differences between this omnibus and material that's collected sequentially in the Epic Collections. So the first one is the one that's highlighted in blue on the left, the Shattershot Annuals. Because if this followed the Epic Collections, this would just blow past the material in X Factor Annual 7 and X-Force Annual 1. Now, you don't need that material. You don't. Shattershot is a story that's hugely stratified through time. It's not like one 4-part story that like you just need all 4 parts where all the X-Men are crossing over. So it makes sense if you don't have them, but it would kind of be a dick move to put out this omnibus and not include the other 2 Shattershot Annual stories. So they're in here, even though they're not in the Epic collections, probably for space reasons and relevancy. The Epic collections tend to keep it pretty tightly focused on their title character. So if you were to read those 2 annual stories, you'd be like, am I even reading an X-Men comic anymore? And that's probably why they're not in Epics.
I feel like
then
I call a friend.
Go ahead.
Did the Epic collections, we don't know what's going to be in the X-Men Executioner Song Epic collection, do we?
I think it's right there.
No, it's the one with Cable, right? Cable on the cover from 294, right?
I mean, I've got them on the shelf right here.
But
you're saying that one's not out yet?
No, it is out. I was just thinking that's the one with Cable on the cover, and that has 294 to 297. I mean, honestly, if they were collecting all of that in that X-Men Executioner song, I don't know. I think for Shattershot they would have to collect all of Shattershot to kind of make it thicker, right? If we were to get a second volume of the Blue and Gold, if you're comparing it,
we're gonna get there.
I'm jumping ahead.
The other thing on the left is they just threw in these 2 extra things. So Mojo has a random.
It's the X-Force epic I was thinking of. Thank you, Logan.
Okay, now that makes sense because I was like, what are we talking about? So there's this random Mojo story from Marvel Comics Presents, which is the kind of stuff, again, that this new kind of all-inclusive galaxy brain mapping includes in the stuff that the event-based mapping didn't. We always would look at the event-based and go, what about this Marvel Comics Presents story? What about this magic inventory story from Marvel Superheroes 1990 #1? And the old omnibuses and OHGs ignored all that stuff. And this new line is starting to cast the net wider and go, was there any other contemporaneous material? And then also just has this Odd Man Out 2008 book, which references this era. Marvel loves to do this now, where they throw like one modern issue in the back of a collection. So
that's
again. But if for those of you who are starting to ask, what's going to be in volume 2 Blue and Gold? Will there be a volume 2 Blue and Gold? I think the answer largely comes from the Epic line. But let's keep moving, Omar. So, does it map perfectly to the Epic collections? Yes. It only deviates in 2 ways. It's what we just covered. First, it adds the Shatterstat A stories. Second, it pulls forward Uncanny X-Men 297. Uncanny X-Men 297 is actually in the next Epic collection. But Omar, if you go back to the previous slide, you can see that 297 is actually in that next Epic Legacies, X-Men Volume 2 Legacies, but they pulled it into this Blue and Gold book for 2 reasons. One, it is an epilogue story to the Aftermath. And 2, that mirrors the way that, where did I put Bishop's Crossing? That is the way that not Bishop's Crossing, that's the way that Executioner Song OHC is mapped. So this is mapped to end at the same place as that OHC. All right, so let's keep moving. Okay, now is the question that I keep telling Omar, hold your horses. Well, Omar, let those wild horses roam free because we're there.
Finally.
Why doesn't Blue and Gold include all of Shattershot? Is the most asked question. I look at the comments on this channel too because I'm a fan and also a member and also a streamer. That he can't get rid of me, really. He's going to need a restraining order soon. And I see everybody asking this. So after the Shattershot annuals in the Shattershot OHC, the remainder of the material in the OHC happens at the same time as the material in the Fatal Attractions OHC, both in release order and story continuity. I know that people are like, I don't get it. Why can't we just cram them in? They actually braid together. A key way you can check this out is the progression of Ileana's legacy virus plot. It starts in X-Men 1991, and then it starts bouncing back and forth between the 2 titles month to month. It's almost like Omar and I planned to do Map My Magic first, knowing we'd need to do that as an explainer for this show.
Those are so fun to do. And drinking on the job. It's always great.
But wait, you don't believe me? Let's go even deeper on the next slide.
Oh, we're going to get nuts. Okay.
So here's like this is for the nerds out there, okay?
Yeah.
Professor Xavier starts out in Uncanny X-Men. It says 1961. That's a goof for me. It should be 1963. In Uncanny X-Men 1963, 297. That's the Executioner Song epilogue issue. It's in the Executioner Song OHC and the new Omnibus, but it's not in the Shattershot OHC because that has no UXM issues. Then Professor Xavier is in X-Men number 17. That's in the Shattershot OHC. Then Professor Xavier is in Uncanny X-Men 298. That's in the Fatal Attractions OHC. And if you look at my small text at the the bottom, we continue to ping pong back and forth from Uncanny X-Men to X-Men Unlimited, both in Fatal Attractions, then to X-Men 1991 again in Shattershot, then back to Uncanny X-Men in Fatal Attractions, then back to X-Men in Shattershot, and then back to Fatal Attractions. These books are the same material happening at the same time. You can't just shove the rest of Shattershot into this blue and gold omnibus. You'll be missing what's happening on Uncanny X-Men.
I like the little footnote, the little editor note out there. Very, very, very well done. But you know what? That's still a strike, though. You're right.
I know. I got one strike. My first strike of the year. That's okay. We're gonna keep it tight, keep it cute, and make it.
That's X-Men, though. Ooh.
So now the number 2 most popular question that Omar has been batting away since Christmas. Why is Marvel reprinting the Fatal Attractions OHC? Wouldn't it be the same as the next blue and gold omnibus? But now, if you've been paying close attention, you know the answer is no. Because the Fatal Attractions OHC is significantly padded by X-Factor issues. But those X-Factor issues have nothing to do with the main story that's happening in X-Men and Uncanny X-Men. X-Factor 92 ties into the central Magneto story and Fatal Attractions, but much less than all the other Fatal Attractions issues. That's why all those supporting X-Factor issues are in the Fatal Attraction OHC to give you context for X-Factor 92. So basically, this is not the same thing as just slapping a blue and gold label on this, because it's missing those X-Men issues from Shattershot, and it has all those X-Factor issues you don't need. But it's almost like we could like swap those and start moving towards a map for blue and gold volume 2.
And I think the other reason, of course, is because people voted for it, right? It was before we knew there was an idea of an X-Men blue and gold. We didn't know that was coming. Like, and understandably, it makes for a better reading experience, blue and gold, than just jumping into an event, which they don't do. So, sorry, Peter, take it away.
Well, actually, here's me being psychic and anticipating some questions from the chat. Can't they just merge Fatal Attractions and Wedding of Cyclops and Phoenix into one omnibus? That's another frequent question. But no, they can't, because that would be 1,648 pages long, and Marvel likes money, so they're not going to give us a 1990s X-Men omnibus with 1,648 pages if they can help it. But also, if we continue to the next slide, as we established earlier, that post-Shattershot material in the Shattershot OHC happens at the same time as Fatal Attractions. So we would actually, if you're talking about merging Fatal Attractions and Wedding of Phoenix and Cyclops, you're actually also talking about merging the rest of Shattershot. So we're saying to combine Fatal Attractions and Wedding and the rest of Shattershot, we're now at like 2,000 pages. But there's already an answer kind of anticipated for this, because again, Marvel's not paying close attention to the OHCs in this mapping based on what we see from Blue and Gold Volume 1. They're looking to the Epic collections. Omar, tell the people some important information, Omar.
This video is not sponsored by Marvel Comics. So everything from now on is speculation, purely on just Peter and I. I will say, for the people that are watching, you know, I still have some X-Men omnibus announcements, but looking at that list, I'm not going to say how many. More than one.
How many fingers are you just holding up? 5, 10, 8?
More than one, less than 10.
Okay.
None of the ones I'm gonna announce are from this era, so it's not like rest assured it's not Blue and Gold Volume 2. So everything from here is just purely based on what we've seen and speculation, just conversations, things that Peter and I just love to talk about, and now we get to talk about it on the air, which is phenomenal.
Okay, so this is purely speculated what a Volume 2 of Blue and Gold could look like. Let's very slowly, not at full crisis speed, talk what's in the left column. And Omar, I want to hear your comments on this as we go. So the first chunk of issues is the remainder of what's in Shattershot, which is like the skinning of Soul's story, the initial Revanche story, all of that X-Men 1991 goodness that is the remainder of the Shattershot OHC.
Yeah, I agree. Can we get it with the spiral notebook?
Oh, that's in Kid Crisis's room. She like pours over it.
I love that. Unheard of. Like, what was it? $7, I think, when we were. like then in 93. That's crazy.
And I love that era of graphic design where like the height of cool graphic design was use 8 different fonts in one page on one section of text, just all of the fonts. That was my design aesthetic through all the 90s, because once I saw it in X-Men, I'm like, well, that must be cool. The using it, that's like what a Snickers ad would look like at the time, like 5 different fonts in one paragraph. So then if we're going to have that X-Men 1991 material, if everyone in class has been paying attention, we also need the Fatal Attractions material, because it happens at the same time. Illyana is coughing in X-Men 1991, and then she, spoilers, dies in Uncanny X-Men 303. So we need all of that primary X-Men material from Fatal Attractions. Omar?
Yeah, I agree. But again, Fatal Attractions was a interesting event crossover, but it didn't cross over with every title, right? Fatal, like, I feel like Excalibur is like the redheaded stepchild that was just like thrown in because it's Excalibur, but sure, included.
I remember at the time buying that Excalibur issue and being like, really? We're doing a holographic card on an Excalibur cover?
I was excited, but you were probably like, this is my humor book. Leave it alone, Marvel.
I don't think Excalibur had ever had a special cover before. Like, they didn't do I don't think Excalibur 50 had like a foil cover. I think that might have been the first ever Excalibur cover that had any kind of like special cover. So I was just taken aback. So in the chat, people are asking, so wait, you're saying that it would collect all of the same things as the Fatal Attraction OHC? Not necessarily. I don't think, if you look at the right column under the Fatal Attractions gold box, I don't think this Blue and Gold Volume 2 would have X Factor 87 and 91. It might not even have X Factor 92. It probably, now would it have X-Force 25 and Excalibur 71? They're not in the Epic line, but
it's the return of a character. You need it.
But it's not in the Epic line.
I know, and they're crazy. Like, I would add it. At least that. I can understand leaving out Excalibur. I can understand leaving out X Factor. And this is coming from a completist. But if you're trying to make room for other things that are primarily X-Men and Uncanny X-Men, then you have to map it differently than your Fatal Attractions Omnibus, as they know it. Because that is the event Omnibus, right? And we know they've been doing that.
So, but here's the thing. We just saw it in Blue and Gold Volume 1. Marvel will take pity on us and throw in a couple of extra issues that aren't in the Epic line if it feels like it rounds out a story, because they threw in the rest of the Shattershot annual stories into the Blue and Gold Volume 1, even though they're not in the Epic line. So maybe we do get those Fatal Attraction singles without getting that big stretch of X Factor. But let's keep going down the left column. Gambit 1 through 4 is abandoned by the current OHC line. It doesn't exist anywhere, but it's in the Epic Collection line. So that will absolutely 100% be in the next Blue and Gold Volume 2. A lot of people would say, well, what about the Sabretooth miniseries? Because the Sabretooth miniseries leads to Sabretooth being in all of these books during that wedding period. Well, we've seen that Sabretooth miniseries get mapped into the Wolverine Epic line and the Wolverine Omnibus line. I don't know if they would duplicate it here, but they could. No,
I think it's important. Because it does lead, like, and we know the collected editions editor loves having the stories in there that explain why something is a different. Like, there are different editors for different eras, right? Of mapping X-Men books or just Marvel books, and I think that would be included in there, because then you have the explanation as to why he's hanging around the mansion in that X-Men Unlimited 3. Right?
Yeah.
And if you're going to include, absolutely. I think I see that being added more so than X Factor 92 and Excalibur 71.
But we're not done yet, because next there's Uncanny X-Men 306, which right now is stuck in the Phalanx Covenant OHC, like 10 issues after this. So it's never been collected sequentially in OHC or Omnibus with all this other material. No. Now, it could just end there, but I think that would be a weird place to end, because it would basically just be a slightly modified Fatal Attractions, and it wouldn't be super long. I think actually the thing that this book would end with, pure speculation, I think it would end with the Blood Ties crossover, at minimum, if not going farther, because the Blood Ties crossover connects so strongly to everything we just saw in Fatal Attractions, and it's only like another, 7 issues, and it lets us push into collecting some things from Wedding of Cyclops and Phoenix, which, as you're going to see in a moment, gets to be really important. But Omar, what do you think about that?
I've put a lot of thought to this volume too. Mainly because I know I was going to be asked, what would you do? Would you wait for a X-Men Blue and Gold Volume 2, or would you get the Fatal Attractions Omnibus? Keep in mind, X-Men Blue and Gold is not a Volume 1. It's just X-Men Blue and Gold Omnibus so far, right? I don't know if they're going to add it to the solicitations. How many pages are we looking at when we get to the wedding of Cyclops and Phoenix, if we add all these issues in there, including 306, right? Which
I didn't do a pure page count, but this is still very much in the realm of, because the Fatal Attractions book, basically we're working from a base of the Fatal Attraction book and taking things in and out of it. So that trade of the Shattershot material into Fatal Attractions in exchange for the X Factor issues is almost like page neutral, because they're just about the same length. And so basically for now, we're just talking about adding Blood Ties, and the Blood Ties Marvel Premiere hardcover was only about 200 pages, and that had the Black Knight Exodus issue, which wouldn't be here. So we're talking about a pretty minor page increase.
I got that added into that was my that brings a special that's a special holds a special place in my heart, because I got that added to the Gathering the Gathering Omnibus event. That was the first time I ever asked Marvel, hey, would it be okay if you guys added the Black Knight Exodus? It's not collected anywhere. Like, maybe that would be cool. And they were like, yeah. I was like, whoa, that's awesome.
So if we go to the next slide, we'll see that, guess what? As much as that seemed like a major headache to compare to existing oversized books, it actually, again, not a surprise anymore, maps really, really well to Epic collections, because the Epic collections are the new map. Now, we don't have any Epic collections past Fatal Attractions yet, so we don't know how the Epic line is going to map past Uncanny X-Men 306, but we see how integrated everything's been. They even include X-Men Unlimited in the Epic collections. So it probably is pretty safe to say that the next Epic collection after this is almost certainly going to be called Blood Ties, and it's almost, or maybe the wedding of Cyclops and Phoenix, but my money's on Blood Ties, and it's almost certainly going to collect the Blood Ties stuff and then press onwards towards the wedding.
He calls me a nerd a lot, because I'm always like, hey, you need this in here.
And he just calls me blocked number.
I'm sure not that many people do, Peter. You're a joy.
So, all right, but let's keep going. Let's keep going, Omar. So, all right, what about now? Everybody's starting to get a little excited. They're getting a little tantalized, titillated, and they're like, what about Blue and Gold Volume 3? And again, like Omar said, they don't actually have volume numbers. The first one's called Mutant Genesis. Clearly, we can't call the second one Fatal Attractions, because that would cause even more confusion. So it would just be called something other than Fatal Attractions. Use your imagination. So then we could have a third one. But now we're getting into some really wild stuff, okay? Because we're already talking about breaking up the wedding oversized hardcover in half. I think there's no way to avoid that just because of the issues it contains. There's no way they're just going to reskin the wedding hardcover based on how it's going to break across the Epic collections. But then we come to the little problem that is the Phalanx Covenant OHC, because it has a ton of extra issues of Excalibur in it, Excalibur 78 through 81. At the time that this was printed, there was speak on it, Omar. There was no collection of those Excalibur issues. So we were like, yes, do it, get those in there.
Not even in trade. Nothing.
No, but now they exist in Epic collection and in the Excalibur Omnibus line. And the only thing they really have that's even slightly related to Phalanx Covenant is the introduction of Douglock, which he only exists in the side tie-ins to the Phalanx Covenant. You don't need the whole history of Douglock to be reading X-Men and Uncanny X-Men. So I can tell you now, I will give all of you money if Marvel puts in all of those Excalibur issues into a theoretical future Blue and Gold Volume 3, because they are not needed.
I'll go even further. You don't need Excalibur, X-Force, and X-Factor.
No, you don't. Speak on it, Omar. Speak on it.
Because that, my friend, is the difference between an event and a crossover event. And the Phalanx Covenant was an interesting crossover event, because the teams were split up. You don't need Wolverine and Cable, and Wolverine's my dude. You just need the creation of Generation X, because that's where your main characters of X-Men are hanging out. Man, I can see them collecting Wolverine and Cable though, because Cyclops and Phoenix or Phoenix, and Wolvie are hanging out with Cable, so I can kind of see them. King, we were just talking about that earlier. You need Battle of the Atom for all new. My suggestion is you don't need to read any Bendis X-Men.
You said it, not me. I'm not taking that. You can take it.
I realize that.
All right. But you know what? Now that we've kind of explained the problems, let's look at what it could look like. This is one way it could look like. It is not necessarily the answer.
I love it, man. This is
so Omar, same thing as last time. Let's talk down the left column and get your reactions. Okay. So right now, the way we're talking about it so far, there's all of the rest of the wedding OHC after Blood Ties, which is actually a pretty huge hunk of issues.
That art is beautiful. The art is beautiful. You guys are right. You guys are right. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I went too far. I'm so sorry. Caffeine talking, lack of sleep. All right.
So there's a ton of X-Men issues leading up to the wedding, the actual wedding, the post-wedding, which has a lot of like little Gambit plot, Mr. Sinister plot, Sabretooth plot. Then we have kind of like the bachelor party issues of Uncanny X-Men that lead up to the wedding. We have Uncanny X-Men Unlimited 3, which Omar already mentioned. We have the wedding album, that What If issue, and Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, which fits into that area right before 35, which is where Cyclops and Phoenix come back. So that's the first chunk. And if you look at what it connects to on the left, that's a big chunk of Cyclops and Phoenix omnibus. But then, as Omar just mentioned, the only essential issues from Phalanx Covenant are the Uncanny X-Men issues and the X-Men issues. You don't necessarily need all that other stuff, which is why I only highlighted in blue. Omar, thoughts?
Yes, but we'll be massacred. I feel like most people, if I ever make an announcement of this, they're going to be like, wait a second. Where's Cable and Wolverine? Where's X-Factor and Excalibur and X-Force?
Well, here's one of those times, though, that Marvel may take pity on the crazy people here on this channel, because we're only talking about Excalibur, X-Factor, X-Force, Wolverine, Cable. They're 5 issues. They're all 1.5 to 2 times long, but that's only going to add between 100 and 200 pages to this book. So maybe it still is in this book, even though they absolutely are not going to be in the Epic collection, but we're not going to get all those Excalibur issues. They just would not make any sense here. But then let's keep going down the left column. So then there's Uncanny X-Men 315, which previously was in the Fatal Attractions OHC, which is kind of crazy, but that's just how they did it back in the day. Here it gets restored to its rightful place in continuity. But now we come to the thing that I know Omar has opinions on because we've talked about it before.
No issue left behind.
These 2 miniseries, and the Rogue One is huge for the continuity moving forward into the Road to Onslaught era.
And Carlos Pacheco on Bishop, man.
Gorgeous artwork. They're abandoned. They've never been collected into the OHC line, but we already saw Gambit get picked up by the Epic line. So I really think these would be in volume 3.
I agree. I think this is where you put, if you're going to put Gambit in the previous volume, then volume 3 needs Rogue and Bishop. If anything, the fatten it up. And oh my gosh, Aaron, I would love to do. Aaron's mapped out Spider-Man in Epic format. I'd love to do that. Let's
have Aaron. Let's do it. Let's do a Map My Web and get Aaron on.
Oh yeah, he'd be great. He is the way we think about X-Men. He does with Spidey, man. He's nuts like us.
So Omar, what do you now? I know everybody in the chat is already like starting to beat the drum. Legion Quest, Legion Quest, Legion Quest. We're gonna get there. Let us cook. Omar, while we're cooking. What is your feeling on this before we start to try to address the Legion Quest material?
My feeling is, where is my Amanda Sefton Magic miniseries?
Somebody on my channel, of all places, said that the correct answer to that is that it goes in the final Excalibur
on this, I'm sure. Yes. Yeah, that's where it is. No, I love this. I think X-Men Unlimited. So for people that don't know, X-Men Unlimited was a quarterly series. It only came out 4 times a year, right, Peter, during this time?
Yes.
I think later on they changed it to monthly. But during this time, it was a quarterly series. So that's why you're only seeing like 1 issue during a big chunk of X-Men. Could you technically add X-Men Unlimited Volume 4?
You mean issue 4?
Yeah, X-Men Unlimited. Yeah, I'm sorry. Issue 4.
I think there is motivation to pull that out of the Legion Quest OHC up to this, because it's a Rogue story and you've got Rogue 1 through 4. but again, it'll depend on where the Epic Collections put it. I think you have to think, and where's my Legion Quest? You have to think that some of the things in Legion Quest are in Legion Quest because they have been abandoned. This was very much a like mop up what's left over book.
Again,
so,
the editor's going, we got to put these somewhere.
Right, because Unlimited 4 actually came out way, way, way before that. If you listen to what Omar just said, if Unlimited came out every 3 months, the fact that this has Unlimited 4, 5, 6, and 7 means it has a whole year of Unlimited in it, but then it only has 4 months of Uncanny X-Men. So all of those Unlimited issues happened way before this, and they would probably be in this volume.
Wesley, which Hellfire Club miniseries?
That's later. Is that 2000?
Okay.
I know what you mean. Not in 98? It's definitely later than this period.
Will there ever be a red, white? You know what's funny? I just filmed the Alien Red, White, and Blood. By the way, those Treasury editions are beautiful. I did say, I don't know. I'm sure there will be. But will there be able to collect the Alien and Darth Vader and Darth Maul along with Wolverine and Elektra? Like, I don't see them being included in those together. But I'm a big fan of those, man. Gambit Omnibus, I think we're letting our viewers vote for the next Matt My Ex.
Did you put the poll up yet?
Well, no, we got to get a date, remember?
Oh, we're doing date first. Okay.
God bless you, Wesley. You are talking about the one from the odds. So the one that came out around the Amanda Seth and Magic one. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of abandoned miniseries from that period. There's the Muties miniseries. There's the Brotherhood miniseries.
Well, Brotherhood was ongoing. At one, like,
yeah, sort of. I mean, it was 9 issues. It was a mini ongoing.
99, that's right. Yeah, look at y'all. That's awesome. Bringing that up.
Yeah, we absolutely need a companion book that has all that stuff. But it's like, what is... And then all of those miniseries that came out alongside the X-Men movie in 2000 and 2001, they were all called Icons, and it was like Nightcrawler, Rogue, Cyclops, Iceman, and they snuck a Chamber one in there too, even though just randomly. Yeah, all uncollected. Yeah. So... But let's keep going because people are having some really good questions.
X-Men Annual 3, the Storm story, is placed annoyingly in Phalanx Covenant. Would it be cool if they? It would be cool if they fix that. Jubilee leaves, then she's back in the Annual. As a reader that was reading those, like I remember thinking the same thing. Like that kind of stuff annoys me. Just like your Professor Xavier and Magic being sick, and it was in Legion Quest. Correct.
Yeah, because again, Legion Quest was a catch-all. The Phalanx Covenant OHC was from these years of event line. Remember back to our first slide. And so the Phalanx Covenant totally was ignorant, really annoyingly ignorant about collecting other things that happened in that era. It just friggin' ignored them.
No.
Which is nobody's fault. Nobody's telling anybody that they're stupid or whatever, but it's
as a fan,
it's annoying.
I appreciate it that they actually, like they thought, like, oh my gosh, we left these behind. And the same, if you look at like Eve of Destruction, which I know we're not going to talk about today.
Oh God, that's what got me on the restraining order.
That that was the actual. Oh, we need to. We need. There were things we left out of Revolution that we could totally put into another omnibus. So yeah. All right, are we ready to move on? We moving on.
Yeah, catch your breath because there's more.
Okay.
All right, so now the chat already has anticipated this, which just goes to show that we understand what the concerns are. We're fans too. Could that volume 3 also just include all of Legion Quest 2, as people in the chat have been saying, take us all the way up to Age of Apocalypse? Now we get into pages math. Button up, folks. The Wedding of Cyclops and Phoenix is 832 pages. But we already know we're taking some things out of that in terms of what's going into volume 3. We took out 60 pages of 3 cable issues that you do not need to understand this X-Men era. So that gets us down to 770 pages. And if you happen to agree with Omar and I that Blood Ties almost certainly would move into volume 2, we take out another 200 pages. Yeah. Let's keep going. Now we have the Phalanx Covenant OHC. This is 458 pages, but we're at minimum omitting 80 pages of Excalibur 78 through 81, which is pretty much just about Douglock. Okay, so where do we stand?
I would say if we're getting the Phalanx Covenant, and if you want the entire omnibus, which is the main story arc with the Douglock stories, they'll just reprint that as an omnibus, right?
Yeah.
They could totally. I mean, we're getting Fatal Attractions. And we're
it's
getting
500 pages. That's, yeah.
So I say you can just omit those. I want stuff that has not been printed in oversized hardcover.
Yeah.
So I would rather lose the Cable and Wolverine, X Factor, X Force, and Excalibur, and just keep the Generation X storyline in there. That's it.
So
and
depending
then a lot more.
Now, depending on if you agreed with us about blood ties or not, we're now in the 950 to 1150 pages range. But we've already established, because Omar said so, that we have to include Bishop and Rogue. That's
Absolutely.
another 200 pages. So now we're talking about an 1150 to 1350 page book. Now we get to Legion Quest. Legion Quest is 571 pages.
But
so...
Do you have the mapping here in the next slide? Or?
Yeah, but it doesn't. People are already kind of thinking of better options, so I want to linger on this for a second. The question is, do you have to collect everything in Legion Quest? So, Omar, I'm going to start reading it out, and you tell me about it. Do you have to collect Uncanny X-Men 318 to 321?
Sorry, I got to go back to the previous mapping. Yes, you do. Yes. Well,
right, because
wait.
See, somebody in the chat brought this up. Go, speak on
some of that. Okay, some of that is already collected in the Legion. Part of Legion Quest is collected in the Age of Apocalypse omnibus.
That's right. So even if we're saying that this is going to be perfect epic collection mapped, the Age of Apocalypse omnibus ain't going to change. That thing is set in stone. It's an omnibus. It's been reprinted many, many times. Marvel could get away with not putting those into this volume 3. Some of them, not all of them.
And I feel like those are. Damn it! Then do you add 107 though? The waking, like when Legion wakes up. X Factor. Sorry.
Okay, let's keep going. X-Men 38 through 41, kind of the same story, right? Some of it's already in the Age of Apocalypse omnibus.
Leave out 40 and 41.
Right. On X-Men Unlimited 4 through 7, we've established that needs to be in this volume 3 because it should have been in Phalanx Covenant OHC to begin with.
Correct. That is correct.
And we already established X-Men Annual 3. People in the chat and Omar are mad that it wasn't in the Phalanx Covenant OHC.
Yeah.
So now, X Factor 107 to 109, which you just mentioned. Now, 109, I think, is the issue that's actually a part of Legion Quest, but you do kind of need 107 to 108 to explain what's happening with Legion. Or do you, Omar?
Not really. You could just have Legion. I mean, the important part is Legion, right? Like, you can have experts of the like some of the pages from those issues. Yeah.
And then finally, you have Cable 20, or is it 21?
21 is the one. I think it's 21.
20, which is actually a part of Legion Quest. So can you take out anything from that? Only if you say that we're going to leave it in the Age of Apocalypse.
Right,
let's go to the next slide.
It is 20. You're right. I have failed.
So could Volume 3 include Legion Quest? I think yes, if you move more from Wedding into Volume 2. I think you would put all the way up the Wedding in Volume 2, like all the way up to the Wedding, up to 30. Then you could do all of this.
And you keep, man, I hate, like, but it makes sense, right? Age of Apocalypse, I think, benefits from having those Legion Quest stories. But Age of Apocalypse doesn't include X Factor 109.
And also, Age of Apocalypse that's an infinitely reprintable storyline omnibus. It's like an omnibus of Avengers versus X-Men. It's an omnibus of House of M. Like, they're always going to go back to print on the Age of Apocalypse omnibus. So I don't see them ever tinkering with the mapping of that omnibus. It's truly evergreen.
Because it's an event omnibus, right?
Right.
It's an event omnibus. And I just, my only thing is, with that one has Cable 20. So we omit it from this. That one has X-Men 320 and 321 and Adjective of X-Men 40 and 41. Would it make sense to add X Factor 109 just for the sake of like Legion and then to be continue in Age of Apocalypse omnibus? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't come down one way or the other on that because I think that's probably the most controversial thing in this whole discussion, which is, would you stop this before Legion Quest to force people to buy the Age of Apocalypse omnibus, Or would you double dip all of Legion Quest because this is an all-in-one Uncanny X-Men omnibus line, and if the issue says Uncanny X-Men, it's got to be in this omnibus line?
See,
there's just no answer.
That's my way of thinking. Does it have the room to add 5 more issues? 6. I'm sorry, because I still think you add Legion in there in at least 109.
Yeah,
Is there room for 6 issues in this? It's a huge book.
It depends on how fat they would want to make the volume 2. If you moved everything all the way up until the wedding in volume 2, but then you just saved the post-wedding stuff for volume 3, then, now we're getting into Map My Ex. I tried to stay away from turning this into Map My Ex and getting into, I just wanted to broadly show, because people are so confused about which OHCs go where. Why don't they already line up? What do you guys mean when there's missing issues or issues out of order? And I think that X-Men Unlimited thing is the perfect example. People don't realize how frankly crazy it is that a whole year of X-Men Unlimited is in the Legion Quest OHC that only covers 4 months of story material.
Do you remember how much Blue and Gold, how many pages it was?
I don't know if they've announced how many pages it is, because I don't think there's an official solicit for it yet.
There's not? Let me double check. I may have gotten it and I just haven't.
You might know. That might be in your secret information.
It's not that secret if I'm talking about it right now.
Yeah, but who knows what extra data you'd receive?
What was the last batch of solicits that we did? Was it May?
Yeah, but it wasn't in those, was it? Was it? Oh, you know what? League of Comic Geeks has it at 1,360. So maybe we did announce it.
Just a second. Double checking. And I'm looking at 2023.
Let's let Omar cook. I've asked for a lot of cooking time.
Un momentito, por favor. Got to search all these emails, and 13. Did we announce it? Does anybody know? Did we do the solicits on it? I think we did, didn't we? Yeah, Peter, because you were like, "Oh, I'm all over that X-Men 3."
Oh, yeah. Well, then we do know it. Then it is 1,360 pages. So these are Marvel. They're willing to let them be big.
Those are huge.
We don't have to keep them under 1,000 like we do with the classic book.
Yeah, those are huge books. Novar, how are you doing? My friend been sick, having been working on coloring my pages when having streams on in the background, and now these two guys are talking X-Men. My being sick is as much as fantastic. Oh, I hope you're feeling better, buddy. Joshua's figuring it out. Por favor. Oh my gosh, yes.
Not my Storm. That's round 2 of the poll. We just said the Storm was too big of a topic to put on.
Oh, I love it. I'll give it to me. Extravaganza is writing 3. Okay. If there are valid concerns, frustrations over newly announced X-Men Omni down the road, I hope Marvel will listen to Omar and you all. By the way, I just speak for the people. It's not like Omar wants this. It's what you all want.
Except for Warren. Not what Warren wants. Everybody else.
God, no, even though Warren's coming in with the page count, thank you, Warren. I hope Marvel will listen, and not just in some vague consulting capacity. He has a finger on the pulse of the collected editions community and is therefore a valuable resource, free focus group for data for Marvel. If Marvel has done a better job with this, they could have changed course and released Massacre Prelude first and then Uncanny X-Men 5 and avoided the ire of a lot of X-heads like myself. I think a lot of people were upset, but part of that, again, was them listening, but just they had already made a book, right? They had already made Uncanny 5, and they listened to us, but just a little too late, right? And then they made that book coming out. I think it was a year, not even a year later. Ooh, I like this, dude. Wake me up when we get the Psylocke and Angel Crimson Dawn. That would be after the Age of Apocalypse, though.
Well, yeah, that's going to be in the Road books.
Oh yeah,
because it's around. It starts after 328, right?
I think so. Yeah. Which later omnibus will we have? Generation X 18 and 19. They were never collected in the Onslaught omnibus.
Just a Generation X book.
Adam, I have your email starred. Actually, you were asking about the Amazing X-Men, right? I actually have it starred. I was getting back to email tomorrow. That's one thing I like for anybody. I work every day, just like Peter. But for my sanity's sake, I mentally take off email on weekends and on holidays. So I don't check emails until the following day. And then sometimes I get so backed up, I got to go back to other emails. What volume number do we honestly think the mainline Uncanny X-Men Omnis will get to? Oh, forever. They will outlive us.
Yeah, they're going to be 2.5 Masterworks until forever.
Yeah, look at the Masterworks.
Well, but
87.
Omar, do you think it'll actually? I mean, assuming the Masterworks eventually get into X-Men 1991, do you think at that point the Masterworks are just going to be copying the epic mapping, and we'll already have that in the form of this?
Oh no, they'll do something unique for the Masterworks. It's the Masterworks. You think Corey's gonna let the epics like copy the No, he's gonna do his own thing.
Yeah, we kind of saw that with Black Panther already.
Yeah, they're gonna do their own thing. They're gonna do their own mapping, and he's gonna just follow the guideline that he's been following all along. Which more power to him, right? I kind of like that. I like the difference of like, mappings and stuff between epics, Masterworks, and Omnis. So if you're a nut, and if you're okay with different formats, you can just grab an omnibus, grab an epic, and grab a Masterworks. So this is crazy.
Yeah, some people get messy, man. They just want that issue that they want, and they'll mix and match on their shelf like it's the Wild West of 2010. And you know what? You could be a comic fan any way you want to be a comic fan. Nobody made any rules.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's weird to think about, but let's face it. These characters, these comics, these collections, they'll outlive us. That's why you got to get your kids to read. Get those kids reading comics. Get them hooked on comics, man. And I will forever use my kids as an example for expanding their vocabulary because, oh my gosh, both of those kids are reading on levels, crazy levels.
Same for Kid Crisis. I always get that her vocabulary is like way, way beyond.
New Spooey channel. We talked about your Pizza Hut, man. We talked about your Pizza Hut comics. Before Archangel and Dawn, you need Archangel 1. That's the black and white one.
Yeah.
Storm 1 through 4. Terry Dodson, right? That's Terry Dodson. X-Men.
Yes.
Books of Ascani.
Love it.
Further Adventures. Jean-Paul Leon do that one? Right? Did he do
Further Adventures is the Mr. Sinister book.
Yeah, it's Jean-Paul Leon. Phenomenal artwork, man. And X-Men versus the Brood with Brian Hitch and Clandestine. That's the Alan Davis team. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Which is why we needed 2 Road to Onslaught books.
Yeah, you kept adding things. That's called generational trauma. Oh, man.
Oh, that hits way too close to home.
Wow. They're going down this blue and gold route. I figured the Uncanny X-Men Omnis will go to volume 8. No, Rich. Here's what's going to happen, man. Here's what's going to happen. They're going to keep going with the Masterworks. Corey and his team, for as long as they're going to be there, they're going to ignore all these event Omnis. They're going to ignore all the OHCs. They're going to ignore all this nonsense. And he's just going to keep the traditional Uncanny X-Men line going. They'll have the letter pages. They'll have the full restoration on the artwork. And the people that only collect the X-Men, Uncanny, that is, will go that route, right? Up until a certain point where X-Men and Uncanny become kind of intertwined. And I'm curious about what he'll do there. But, I mean, we're looking... Oh, my gosh. What is that?
We're only about 5 years away, I think. It's 5, 6 years
we get
away.
one. We don't have any announced yet. Any X-Men announced for 2025 yet. Usually it's the beginning of the year when they do a Masterworks. So I'll email David tomorrow about the Masterworks list. I have 2. Maybe I just make an announcement of 2.
So just to make sure we end on looking at a slide that's relevant to what people came here for, can we go all the way back to slide 6? Because I think that was the question that originally led us to this stream.
You're just now joining. Don't forget to smash that like button too. Where would blue and gold line finish? I think right where we said, like 3, and then you get to the Age of Apocalypse.
Because technically Road to Onslaught could just, I mean, it's more blue and gold, really. It's just both books. But Marvel, if you've not noticed lately, Marvel's getting kind of allergic to putting volume numbers on books, especially volume numbers higher than 2. So why would they call those blue and gold like 4, 5, 6 or whatever if they could just call them Road to Onslaught? It's always better for their branding if they do branding in 1s and 2s. So you could think of Road to Onslaught as blue and gold 4, 5, and 6 if you want to, but I don't think we live in that world. I think blue and gold specifically refers to the period from the beginning of X-Men 1991 to the beginning of Age of Apocalypse.
Really quick, this is a question I get often, and I think I already got it during this stream, but maybe Roman wasn't here. What about Claremont and Lee volumes before? Will those get replaced by more updated mappings? Eventually they will. But I think with a name like Claremont and Lee, you're always going to have them, right? Just like we have like Batman by Paul Dini, that dips heavily into the Hush omnibus, right? It's the same thing. The exact same thing. You have a creator-centric omnibus that you're probably going to keep in print. And if people want to continue reading X-Men in chronological order, then they can get the... What volumes would those be, Peter? Have you mapped these out? 6, 7?
Yeah, I haven't done all the math, but usually it's 2.5 masterworks.
I'm thinking like 9 or 10 for the first volume. And then 11. Well, no, I'm curious how Masterworks handles Extinction Agenda. 9, 11 or 12 for the second volume. So, but I mean, if we're talking about 12, like volume 12, we don't even have an announcement of an Uncanny X-Men volume 6 yet.
Yeah, that you're putting that horse, the cart in front of the horse.
You're looking
Cart's far in front of the horse.
Like, I mean, you're looking at 14 years, and that's the thing. What we're speculating also isn't a done deal, right? It's just exactly what we're doing. We're speculating. What we do know is coming is the Fatal Attraction Fatal Attractions Omnibus next month. So when people ask me, do you wait for X-Men Blue and Gold Omnibus Volume 2? Honestly, it is up to you all. We're just kind of giving people ideas of what to do.
I mean, that Fatal Attractions book, it's a good book. The Fatal Attractions storyline is a great 90s storyline. Those X Factor issues have Joe Quesada art in them. I mean, it's the fact that some other mapping might exist doesn't change the fact that if you just want to read this whole buildup of the Acolytes kind of going a little bit out of control, and then the X-Men deciding we've got to finally take this fight to Magneto, and then that resolving with the assassination attempt on Magneto, that's what that book is. If you want a book that tells that story, that's what Fatal Attractions is, especially if you just watched X-Men 97 and you want a book that basically has what happens towards the end of that season. That's Fatal Attractions. So buy it. It's going to be a different thing in a different form if we ever get a second Blue and Gold. It's not going to be as purely focused on Fatal Attractions.
And that is one thing I never do on my channel. Whenever I do overviews, whenever I have live streams, I never tell people, go and buy this, right? But if people ask me what I would do, I am more than happy to share that, of course. But I always, preface it with, I'm an idiot. I will buy, I'll absolutely buy these books when they're available. And then I'll talk about and think about when they're going to be double dipping later on. And that's just the way my mentality always has been, whether it's comics or video games or movies. Like some of my favorite movies, I have no idea how many times I've bought over and over in different formats. In the same format, in DVD format, 4 different times, because they kept coming with extra goodies and extra limited editions. And that's just the way I am. And I understand not everybody's like that, but that is me and who I am. I always preface everything with, I'm an idiot. I think my wedding vows started like that. I'm a bit of an idiot. So, if you still want to marry me, let's do it. And there is also the mentality of, I'm too old, so I just buy them and sort it out later.
Yeah. I don't want to wait until I don't want to wait another 2 decades for my perfect X-Men shelf before I can read it. Like at some point, it's not perfect right now. It's got all these gaps and random stuff because these event OHCs are not perfect. But I'm past this with Kid Crisis. We're into Road to Onslaught now. We read all of Age of Apocalypse, and she just asked me this morning, "Ooh, are we going to continue? I want to get to Onslaught." And she was only going to be young once. If I waited for all of these books to come out in the perfect order, I would have been waiting until she was in college. Like, life goes by. If you want to enjoy these books now, if you want to enjoy these books with your kids, if you want to enjoy these books in your current house with your favorite armchair before you have to move, at some point you got to just put a stake in the ground and read the books.
And that's what I always remind people too. Like, for me, it's never about collecting. I love reading. Obviously, Peter and I love reading because we come up with crazy crap like this. And obviously a lot of you all do too, and you take it seriously. And sometimes, you're on a budget, so you have to make decisions like, oh, do I get this now? Do I wait later? So yeah, it's a lot of fun. But we take a lot of, I try to be as responsible as I can be with other people's money, not my own. So whenever people ask me my opinion on things, I give you my opinion. Yeah, I'm in that club too. Yeah, getting older, man. I'm 46. And let me tell you, I need readers now to read, and it sucks.
I can't see anything right now with my glasses off. I don't even, is that Omar? It could be Elmo with all that red on the screen. I don't, Omar, Elmo, I don't know.
I have, like, I hate admitting it. It's just like another sign of getting older, but I need readers now. I can't read without them, even in omnibus format, and it makes me mad. I think I got over it. Whatever. I got over it. I'm just, Now, of course, you could go the route of epics, but even in epic format, you still have to wait because they release them not in chronological order, but they bounce around, right? So,
but you know what? Marvel Unlimited always exists, and I think that people get a little bit crazy sometimes, a little bit wild about needing everything in perfect order on the shelf, especially in the read with Kid Crisis. So I have them all in floppy from back in the day. I have all these OHCs, every possible one that we're talking about. I have. And then sometimes I wind up going on Marvel Unlimited just because like when we got to Uncanny X-Men 306, I was like, I'm not going to go pull out a whole different book for that. We just read it on Marvel Unlimited, right? And then there's things that aren't on Marvel Unlimited. When we got to X Factor 106, I think, that wasn't on Marvel Unlimited. And there's no HC, so I had to go pull out a single issue. Like, you just at some point, you got to just read the books.
You've never read Austin's X-Men? Look, here's
yes,
the thing.
I have. What is this slander?
He's saying that he hasn't.
Oh, he's never read it.
Run. And it was bleh. I always tell people, read it and judge it for yourself. There's always all these comics, and I mean, we have so many YouTube personalities and TikTokers and just what are they called in this influencers or whatever that are like, oh, this is the worst story ever. This is the worst X-Men ever. I don't like Bendis's X-Men. But I always tell people, go and read it because there's a ton of people. I am outnumbered. I'm in the minority that love it. I love Avengers: The Crossing, and I ain't got no damn shame in that. I know the story sucks, but it's still, I love that era of the Avengers. Peter loves like Chuck Austin's X-Men and Peter Milligan's X-Men, and I hate that about him.
Don't put words in my mouth. So look, I mean, there's two things happening there, right? There's like nostalgia. Like Omar and I grew up on this blue and gold stuff. We will always we'll buy every book. We're always going to. To us, this is what X-Men was. And somebody made a great point on Twitter the other day that I saw that they were saying, well, you know what? For some people, that's what Bendis X-Men is. Like people who were reading that when they were like 12 or 13 are now 23. And they have purchasing power and they want it collected so they can revisit it. And the same is true for Chuck Austin's X-Men. Every X-Men is somebody's first, but the other half of that is once kind of a crowd opinion comes out on something and it reaches majority and it's not split, right? There's some things that are just really split. I would say like, I don't know what's something that's really split. Tom King, Batman, right? There's boosters and detractors. I don't think there's one accepted opinion on whether Tom King Batman is great or not. Both sides are pretty loud. But
I tell you what, though, the loudest side is we want
give me the omnibus,
the number one most wanted DC omnibus, which is just insane.
I was there. Cassandra Cain #2, but my point is like once that crowd wisdom comes out, it's hard to reverse. And so the crowd wisdom for 20 years now has been that Chuck Austin's X-Men sucked. There are good elements of it, but it's hard to get underneath that crowd wisdom about it to see. And that's why Omar and say, read for yourself. There are cool issues of the issue where Juggernaut and the little boy and there's good issues in there. Yeah, it's got the Draco. Yeah. Yes, it has the most WTF X-Men moment of all time with Husk and Angel. But there are
that's the one for you, not the Draco. Oh, God.
I think Husk and Angel having sex in midair in front of everyone they know, including Husk's entire family, is the truly strangest moment that has ever been in an X-Men issue.
Here's a good question. Omar in Crisis, what makes y'all decide when to upgrade from OHC? Does it shave me shelf space? I've seen that a lot. I did it for my Batman Nightfall Omnibus Volume 1. I tell you what, like, I'm such an X fanatic, and this is only for X-Men, or any X-Men related, like Wolverine, Excalibur, X-Factor. If they add a couple of things, right? Like, if they add 1 or 2 issues, Marvel Comics Presents, or even letter pages, like, I don't see people going crazy over letter pages besides Curtis, who wants an epic collection of letter pages, which is just insane. But letter pages to me they're a time capsule. And it's so awesome to open them up to see what the world was thinking at that time, and how people were reacting to a lot of these things that right now, these are classic stories, but back then people were moved by emotions in different ways because these characters were so close to them, almost like family, almost like best friends. And if something bad happened to them, I'll never forget and I can't wait for the letter pages to be collected, there was a gentleman that wrote about losing his friend, complications of HIV. And it was in a reaction to the issue 303, and talking about like burying his friend with a copy of Giant Size X-Men #1. And I was like, man, what a beautiful letter. Like, it's things like that the real world was dealing with, and they were reacting to comic books. So again, letter pages are very important to me. Austin said X-Men would sell, right? It's X-Men. Yeah, I talk about that, but I'd be all over it. Chuck Austin X-Men. Plus, it's got Kiyoshi on artwork, and who else was it? Philip Tan on artwork, Ron Garney on artwork. It's got killer artwork.
And in interviews, Austin always says like he was given the directive, do like a manga-esque soap opera version of X-Men, while to contrast with Morrison's new X-Men, and to contrast with Claremont hitting nostalgia buttons on Extreme. And that's what Austin did. Like, don't blame the guy for doing the thing that he was asked to do and doing it. I mean, that's why it's so awful, because it's just a ridiculous soap opera with a bunch of familial weird connections, right? That's why the Draco exists. That's why the Husk story exists. That's why Havoc almost gets married, because it was soap opera. And like, that's what X-Men... Claremont X-Men is soap opera. Why the original From the Ashes from Uncanny X-Men 171 to 175 is soap opera. That's what it is.
Love it. Steve, I expected somebody that has Helverine as his avatar to go Omnis instead of OHCs. But I see this too, that OHCs are easier to read. Absolutely, they are. And hopefully the new OHCs that Marvel's gonna be coming out with will be sellers, big sellers, and show them that there's still an interest in that format. Favorite manga? Berserk. All day, every day. Let me tell you, I've liked Berserk since 1998. So long before it became this edgy answer for everybody to be like, oh yeah, Berserk's the greatest manga. Of course, it is. Peter, I know you don't read much manga, but you have read some.
A little bit. I've read some My Hero Academia. I've read Corpse Delivery Service, I think is the...
Oh, God, that's a good one. Yeah. Corpse Delivery Service.
So, and there's a vampire one I really want to read. I think for me, it's like, I just read so much digital now, and it's not as... I know there are manga digital platforms, but look, I'm an expert in how to find American comics on digital. I'm not an expert on where to get my manga digital. So I think if somebody just sat down and like wrote me an explainer of like which manga studios are on which all-you-can-eat digital platforms, I probably would read it a little bit more. But there's not going to be any manga collections in this house. You see how full these shelves are. It's a limited resource. So I think for me, and then also I would need somebody to sit down and tell me what I'm really going to love. Like if people have been watching my show and my channel, I give it up for angel and demon nonsense. That's one of my favorite thing. Any kind of like war between heaven and hell, I'm totally into it. And then there's some tropes that I'm totally not into. I don't really do like animal stuff, like cats and dogs that are like talking or whatever. That just is not my trope. So I need some manga expert to tell me like, the Crisis, here's the ones you're gonna like, and here's what digital platform to read them on, and then we could have a whole series of shows of Crisis new reader of manga, because I've read virtually none.
Oh my gosh, you've read Akira, right? Like when Marvel was.
I have started to. That was my New Year's resolution, that I was going to start reading Akira. Yes. Mm-hmm. I always try to start every year. This is a good question I have for Omar. I'd love to have manga advice in the comments. Omar,
Chrono Crusade.
Do you try the beginning of the year? Do you care about what your first big read of the year is? Like, do you just attack what's next in the stack, or do you say like, it's January 1st, this is significant, what should I start with?
So I purposely set aside a couple of books.
That's what I do.
And I'm like, okay, I know I have work to do. I have to read for work, but I need to read these for fun. And one of them was like Manifest Destiny Volume 2. I finally wrapped up the series. So yes, I do read for fun still, and at the beginning of the year, and then I lose track of everything by by the time like February comes around. I'm like, oh, I miss reading for fun.
Yeah, I just try in January 1st. I'm like, I don't want to just read like random issue 12 of some comic. I want to read something that reminds me why I love the comic book medium to like start my new year. So every year I try, I've read the beginning of Hellboy. Last year I read It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth by Zoe Thorogood. I try to always read something that's like a real indisputable solid pick, even if it's not going to be my favorite. And so this year I chose Akira issue number 1.
So Omar, you mentioned that Marvel needed big selling omnis, so less reprints. Are print runs going to be smaller, less risk, no Planet of the Apes, Strike Force Morituri style in the future? They never really reveal print numbers to me. All I know, is that reprints always have a smaller print run. I think volume 2s are going to have a smaller print run than volume 1s. And I think, case in point, Chip Zdarsky's Omnibus volume 2 of Daredevil, I want to say both printings are now officially out of print. I don't see a restock, or at least I haven't seen a restock come through yet. So there is that. Build the material from. Oh, anxiously awaiting. Good man, Akira's a must. Oh, yes. What manga do we recommend for Peter? I recommend he read everything, but if he doesn't like furries,
I don't like furries. I don't like brutal violence, and I cannot with like women being mistreated just for the plot of a man. That's the quickest tune out for me.
Well, I'm out of ideas. I like slice of life manga. Like, I love Maison Ikoku is probably number 2 on my favorite manga I've ever read. It's just a story about a guy that's going in college and falling in love with a new innkeeper who's a widow. That's it. That's the story. And it goes on for 15 volumes, tankobons, and they made bigger size books. Aria. I think Aria is a wonderful series. I love it. Ranma. I love Ranma. But you don't like furries. They do turn into animals.
It's not that I don't like, and not just furries. This week on
you've never read Black Side?
No. So this, it just doesn't. It's not my thing. Like this week for my show, I read a couple of issues of Feral, the new series from Tony Fleeks, who's the co-creator of Local Man, and he does Stray Dogs. It's impeccably made. It's beautiful. It's funny. It's heartfelt. It's just not my comic book. Like I can agree that it's good, but it does not inspire me to like go and binge it. And I had to just accept like cats and dogs plots. Generally, sometimes they can work. But generally animal plots, whether it's an anthropomorphized like furry type animal or it's just like actual animals having an adventure, don't like resonate in the depths of my soul usually.
So, okay. Now I have to ask this because my wife she doesn't like violence if it's realistic violence, but over the top violence, like cartoony violence, like limbs getting ripped apart and stuff like that, she loves. What about you? Like no violence at all?
No, I mean, I can read it, but if it's a book that everybody's like, oh, wait till you see all the sick violence in this book, I'm like, I can tell you already I'm not going to like this comic book.
Okay.
But that's me. But here's the thing that's my big 2025 saying. Interrogate your comics. And that also includes interrogating what you like about comics. Because I used to just be like, well, this book is bad because it has violence. Well, no, this book does not appeal to me because I tune out because I don't like looking at the details of gore. So I just start turning pages faster. And then I get to the end. I'm like, well, that book was boring because the thing in the book that people like is not the thing that I like. So I'm really trying in 2025, instead of just saying that sucked, say, oh, the thing that book mostly focused on is a thing that just makes me turn the page. So I did not absorb it in the same way as other people. Interrogate your comics.
Yotsuba. That's a good one. My youngest loves that. Monster is excellent. I would say anything by Urasawa. Normally I would recommend Chainsaw Man, but then something Peter said, I'm like, never mind. One Punch Man, though, that's a lot of fun. In 2025, why is pre-ordering still the lay of the land for collected editions? So many of us don't pre-order because we either get host on the price or financially can't. Because that's how they determine numbers, right? The algorithm of the direct market is a lot different than Amazon. Amazon has, I think, a bot that orders, and that's how it works based on previous sales of like Blu-rays, things that have nothing to do with like Omnis or collected editions. But direct market sales are different, and they rely heavily on that to see how big of a print run they're going to have. And that's just something that they've always done, because I mean, and now they're getting closer to printing to that number of pre-orders because they don't want things going on liquidation, because what happens when you go on liquidation is you lose money. What happens when you lose money? You got to talk to the board. And what's the board going to say if you're losing money left and right every quarter? Well, you probably figured that out.
Well, I also think that people forget that Marvel doesn't benefit from eBay sales. They don't benefit from book market. Like they don't care. That's invisible to them. So it's in Marvel's best interest, as Omar just said, to sell out of the book. Sellouts are good for Marvel. We don't like it because then we missed it, and we were like, I'm going to put it in my order next month. And then we have to pay aftermarket prices. But that's invisible to Marvel. And if enough people have enough demand on the aftermarket and it makes its way through things like Omar's poll, then Marvel will reprint it. So it's actually way in Marvel's benefit to actually print slightly under the demand, really, than overprinting the demand. And once they've worked out the economies of scale of the actual printing.
I'm loving all these suggestions, by the way, for all the manga. I didn't know there were so many of you that are manga readers and anime or manga for the series. I like both. How many volumes of X-Men Blue and Gold Omnis do we need before we get to the Transcendent X-Men Gold by Mark Guggenheim? What's funny is that somebody was asking, won't it get confusing if X-Men Blue and Gold, they come out with an X-Men Blue and an X-Men Gold omnibus later on? I don't think that'll be the case. I think it will be an X-Men by Cullen Bunn omnibus, a Bunnibus finally, and an X-Men by Mark Guggenheim omnibus. That will be how you differentiate between the eras, because this is the original Blue and Gold era, right? Even though that trade paperback, because of No Issues Left Behind, X-Men Blue Zero, you remember that one? And
yeah, I was just going to say, like, they've already effed with us in the opposite direction and called an old thing Blue and Gold that really had nothing to do with Blue and Gold. So now
people
words have no meaning.
That's a good one. That's a great suggestion for the people that have been saying that. I love that suggestion. Absolutely love it. And let me just go back a little bit here to some of the other comments. Omar, are you going to do an overview of Ashita no Joe? Yeah, mine's a lot of the Kentucky's somewhere in the middle between the horrible things that are happening in LA with the fires and then this huge ice storm. So it's literally the Song of Ice and Fire around here. So there are more important things that need to be shipped. So I'm not complaining. Like, my Amalgam Omnibus finally came to me last week, while everybody else seems to be getting it. Dude, what's up, Manimal? This guy loves X-Men too. I hope you've been doing all right, brother. Congratulations. That new kiddo, man. They keep you up, but it's all worth it, man. X-Men Blue and Gold is like Batman Black and White.
That would actually be cool. They should at least do a one-shot that's like Black, White, Blue, and Gold. That would be neat.
We are always at it again. Always at it. If it's X-Men, we're here talking about it, trying to make sure people have a better understanding. Omar's Nightwing Year 1, a good starting point for Nightwing. Also, it's a must-read. Read before... Actually, Nightwing Year 1 is the last thing Chuck Dixon wrote with Nightwing on it. So you don't necessarily need to read it before reading Nightwing by Chuck Dixon. You can just jump in and read it whenever you want to. It's a freaking awesome story. It's one of my favorite Year 1 stories. Omar, when are you posting the Dark Web Omnibus overview? When does it come out? I think it comes out 2 weeks from now, so next week, along with one of the Secret Wars. I can't remember which one. Battle World? It's Dark Web, Amazing Spider-Man 6, Secret Wars, and Secret Wars Battle World. I thought there were 5 Omnis coming out this month. Weren't there, Peter? What's the 5th one?
My brain doesn't work like that, Omar.
The worst. The absolute worst. Explain X-Men to me in Batman terms. How would I even do that? X-Men takes place in real life. Batman is made believe because there's no such thing as Gotham City. X-Men live in New York. Have you announced the all-new X-Men Omni yet? Yes. Sometimes I have to think. Sometimes people get me. I'm like, wait, did I? Yes, I did. That one is coming out. Was it announced for it? They added it to the August Yeah, August. So it'll be out in August. Is there an unpopular X-Men event you like? Also, least favorite X-Men event. Ooh, what a great question. Unpopular X-Men event? What's a well-hated event? I actually legit, I think Peter hates this event. I actually like Eve of Destruction. I think there's a moment.
It's okay.
Yeah. I thought you hated it. I like when Cyclops is sitting there and it's him and Wolverine, and they have this moment of like, there's like 100 dudes out there, and Cyclops is like, all right, let's get ready to go out there and kick some butt. And Wolverine's like, all right, let's go. And Cyclops is like, just kidding. And Wolverine's like, yeah, me too. I was like, yes, that's the kind of thing I wanted to see. I kind of like that.
So wait. So an unpopular X-Men event that I like. Unpopular. So I don't know about event because I'm like, what X-Men event is unpopular other than Onslaught, which I also hate. But
Onslaught sells. Onslaught sells though.
Well, it's unpopular between us two anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know, Omar. What would you say is an unpopular X-Men event?
I would say I hear a lot of people hate Apocalypse at 12.
Oh yeah, well that's also bad. Yeah, I don't know. If I had to say one that's like not super popular that I really enjoy. I mean, I love Second Coming. I don't know how popular Second Coming is.
What about IVX? Did you like that?
No. I would say that I tend to more like series that everybody overlooked. Like, do you know what I love? I love the Cable and X-Force series from the beginning of Marvel Now by Dennis Hopeless. Nobody ever remembers that even existed. I could have read like 100 issues of that. Yeah. Uh-huh. And then a popular one that I hate. I mean, where do we even start? I hate all sorts of popular stuff. I hate AVX. I just had to review it for my Magic Guide, and it makes me so angry the whole time that I have to look at AVX.
Dude, real talk. X-Men Wildcats had some of the best X-Men artwork I've ever seen. Travis Charest on that, what was it, the X-Men Wildcats Golden Age?
Oh, Travis Charest, nothing compares. Nothing compares.
Dude, why couldn't they? Like, I know he's slow. And but I would love like a quarterly series from the guy. Oh, he's so good. Blew up, man. Started off like a Jim Lee clone and just kind of did his thing.
Those James Robinson, Travis Charest Wildcats issues, I'm so happy they're in this compendium after them not getting really collected in any format for so long. The art is just so gorgeous.
AVX gorgeous. Are horrendous. I actually like the Axe. I like the Axe.
Axe was great. That's okay. That's my answer. Axe is unpopular. I think Axe is the best Marvel event.
Best Marvel event?
Yes, I said it.
Huh.
Because Kieran Gillen is my god king of X-Men comic books. And so Kieran Gillen wrote over 50% of it. And it's just all Kieran Gillen. Like, I want to buy all the single issues and spread them all and roll around in them naked. Like, it's so good. Too much. Too far.
I liked that was too much for me. I can't handle that. The shock. Onslaught is better than anything from Claremont. Blas, you and is Warren still here?
Look, I feel a kinship with Blas because of Blas's great hair. So if Blas wants to say out of pocket things, that's okay. That's cool.
He gets a pass because he has great. What kind of rules are you establishing? Peter does not represent the thought of the human condition. Tell you that. You say something stupid, I'm gonna call your ass out. Love Age of X annual reread. I love that people love that. Yeah, actually, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it, but I also didn't hate Age of X.
I think Age of X is one of those books that's more interesting now because it has Mora in it. And at the time, Mora was dead, and we're supposed to believe she's a figment of Legion's imagination. But what if actually... So that's cool. Anything with Mora gets more interesting now.
What is the best X-Men event, and why people love Age of Apocalypse? That one gets a lot of love. I think for me, it always will be Fall of the Mutants, because Mutant Massacre was my first experience at an X-Men event, but I was ready for the next year. And it's not even a crossover event, right? It's just a legit event. They're all doing their own things. But that fight against the adversary, Archangel joining Apocalypse, and then the whole thing with the Right versus that the animator and all those characters, Goofy, Animal Island. Oh yeah, you hate furries. Sorry about that, Peter.
I never said that. Do not put words in my mouth. I said I don't like cats and dogs books. I mean, I think there's a strong argument to be made for Extinction Agenda because it's like where everybody comes together. I think there's a strong argument to be made for Age of Apocalypse. I think there's a strong argument to be made for the combination of Messiah Complex and Second Coming.
I like the different opinions, though. Mutant Massacre. We're still talking about manga here. Fire Force is good. Schism. Somebody brought up Schism. That was I am working on the. I'm actually Arjun. I'm letting our Patreons vote for the next reading order. They take a long time, and if anybody knows more about reading orders, how long they take, it's this man right above me. Like, holy crap! They're time consuming, and since
it's that last mile. It's that last mile of the reading order. Like the magic order, I'm mostly done, and I tried to have it done for our stream. I maybe spent like 6 hours on it, but that last mile of like reproofing, making sure you didn't miss any, side appearances, making sure there's no special footnotes of like what order things go. That part is just killer.
Yeah, like the reading order of, like, I look forward to. So nowadays, when I would prep for the reading orders, when I wasn't doing a video every day, sometimes 2 or 3, I would just reread and I'd be ready. Now it's like I don't have the time to reread. I have to skim and then reread some of the things that I've only read one time. Like I don't, or I can't find my trades of like some of my like Avengers. I'm like, oh gosh, that's gonna be a pain in the butt to try to put together if I can't find them. I'm rereading Extreme X-Men by Claremont. Man, the start with Destiny Diaries is so difficult to read. It's like Claremont is stuck in old times, but after the books only got good. I actually like the mystery of the Destiny Diaries. It's X-Men gender neutral.
Well, I think it's at the time, maybe it wasn't thought of in a gender neutral way, but I think it's like saying the race of man. It's
mankind.
Mankind, which is outdated in its own way as language, but I think that's the way to think about it.
Why did Fall of X take 1 year to resolve?
It didn't.
Yeah, Fall of X ended, right? And then
Fall of X was a 6-month status quo, and then there was Fall of the House of X, which was unfortunately named very similarly. But Fall of X was meant to just be like, wow, the X-Men are being murdered, they're being hunted. Like that was just a 6-month status quo from the Hellfire Gala in June 2023 to December of 2023. And then 2024, they just named it badly. It shouldn't have been called Fall of the House of X because it still makes no sense. But that gives the impression that it lasted a whole year, which I don't think we can say because that era, as we're seeing in the Omnibus, is being collected totally separately from Fall of X.
Yes, Fall of the Mutants. I'm so glad you like Fall of the Mutants, Gwen. Me too. I love it. Come on, Omar, pick my question so you and Peter can discuss your mapping preferences for Bendis' X-Men. What was your question? I picked this and you didn't have your question attached. Oh, here we go. Okay. Do you think that all new X-Men Omni could have mapped better to include all of Battle for the Atom and Black Vortex? Or should it have been a chronological 2-volume Omni with Uncanny? I've already said why I think they did it. I don't speak for Marvel. Again, I just think I think they did it because if they're talking about Volume 2's not selling as well and Volume 3's and so on, then they need to separate them, right? Oh, here's all new X-Men by Bendis. Here's Uncanny X-Men by Bendis. There, you don't have volume numbers. That's why they did it. Oh my gosh, yeah. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of this era, I would have liked to have seen Battle of the Atom collected in there. Yeah, of course. I'm a completist. I love it just as much as you all do. And I would have liked to have seen Black. I specifically mention things that are missing whenever I make announcement videos. I'm like, oh, there's no Black Vortex in here. You just get the issues. And there are no issues with Battle of the Atom for all new X-Men.
Yeah, I think I explained this pretty thoroughly at the start, but just for the benefit of Mike, who's on the stream now, I personally would have preferred the 2-volume set that merged Uncanny and All New. But since we got All New on its own, I'm actually really fine on it, not including Battle of the Atom. And y'all have got to let it go, Elsa, when it comes to Black Vortex. It's not going to happen for you. It shouldn't happen for you. It's not, let it go. Because it's not going to happen. And you don't need it. The whole story does not have any real lasting effects other than Angel gets the fire wings, which is already addressed in the issues of All New X-Men.
You know, this is funny. House of M is not really an X event. I still think it's more of an X event than an Avengers event.
I agree.
Because
it's an X-Men and Avengers event. You know, that's.
I think the ramifications affect the mutant kind more, right? Because of decimation and all that, more so than the Avengers. So when it's not in the New Avengers Omnibus or the New Avengers Epic Collections, to me it makes sense. I'm like, well, yeah, this is in my head. I always thought it was more of an X-Men thing than an Avengers.
I mean, real talk. They could release an extended version of the Astonishing X-Men Omnibus that has House of M and the two Phoenix series, Endsong and Warsong.
Don't you think people are already enough confused with our mapping and coming up with extended?
But that would make mapping easier. All the and Kitty Pryde, Shadow and Flame. All that stuff happens during Weed and Astonishing. Anyway,
let me remove that. So as we're about to wrap up, Hoxpox is one of the best X events. Oh yes, absolutely. So much work to see the "you missed this book" and this book comments 10 minutes after the video goes live. Did we miss a book? Did we miss it? Oh, it never fails, right? The reading orders, absolutely. That's what he means. Yeah, never.
That's why I don't like doing them on video. I did one reading order ever on video for Excalibur. It was such a production. I think I permanently hurt my eyesight because I was looking into my ring light for so long that day. And as soon as I was done the video, it was out of date. So I think Omar is brave, but also slightly foolish for doing video reading orders because they go out of date as soon as the next book comes out. You know, that's why my site is in hypertext and gets updated sometimes once a week.
Doug. Real question. Lee and Artie Omnibus. We can map that. People want to watch a Leech and Artie Omnibus. Yeah, it never fails, right? Like you put I think I commented on my Saturday live stream, like you spend so many hours. And this is even prepping for it, right? 4 hours of straight shooting that Krakoa era Omnibus.
Oh, it takes forever.
Just shooting it. Yeah. Right. And then I had to do color correction and voice balancing and all that, and then shoot it over to Dom, who, by the way, spent another 5 hours editing it. And I think one of the first only to have one of the first few comments were like, Krakoa sucked. And all worth it. All worth it. You got to focus. That's when you start focusing on the good comments, right? Like the good comments, the people that see how much work goes into these things. Like, that's when you focus on that and less on this sucked. The Gold Balls Omnibus. Hell no. Deadpool and X-Force, right? Only the ending matters to X-Men. I got Black Vortex hardcover for my Guardian set because it wasn't in Volume 1. Which it belongs in Guardians of the Galaxy Omnibus Volume 1, if any of them by Bendis, not Volume 2 because they had already passed that point. Recently read Children of the Vault. It was great.
Dennis Camp.
Yes, that was awesome. Very underrated. It is such a good title. And he also, what was it that, who did the Cable and Bishop story?
That's Children of the Vault. You mean the new one and the time slide special?
Is it David Papos?
No.
Cable? I thought he was doing the Cable.
He's writing Cable, but the time slide special I think was by Steve Fox with Tempest in it. Steve
Fox, okay. And yes, please don't forget to smash that like button. Thank you so much. Video idea. Great jumping off points for X-Men. Suggestion for Omar. Points to over watching narratives finally resolve. Oh, great jumping off points. I never talk about that. I don't like the idea of jumping off points. But there are several viewers of mine that do have jumping off points, right? Working at the comic book store, I knew several people that shopped at the comic book store that had definite jumping off points. I worked at the comic book store from 1994 and oh my gosh, I think all the way, 92 to 96 until I left comics. And I would have people that had stopped reading Spider-Man after Gwen Stacy died. Like had read anything. And I remember looking at them like, so you don't even know who Venom is. And now he's got this like symbiote called Carnage. Oh my gosh, it's all, could you not read? But I get it, right? I respect that. That's cool. They just like they would get other things. They didn't get Spider-Man anymore because they killed off Gwen Stacy. There was somebody I remember that had stopped reading X-Men with Chris Claremont leaving because that was in 91. And he was, I don't know if he ever went back to X-Men. He was like, X-Men's done. Claremont was X-Men and that's it. So you didn't get to read Executioner Song, Age of Apocalypse, and all these things we're talking about, right? That is nostalgic for a lot of people.
there's two different kinds of jumping off point. I know my answer is always there's two of something. There's two different kinds of jumping off points. There's the one which is like you're so frustrated you cannot possibly read it anymore, which is like you and me with Onslaught.
X-Men Unlimited? No, the Bribe by Boy, that's a spoiler. Never mind.
But then the other thing is like a jumping off point where actually enough of the story threads get tied up that it's satisfying. And I think that's actually a good discussion to have. Like, where is it satisfying to stop reading X-Men, right?
Well, and everybody differs, right?
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, I would argue, a lot of people could jump off at AVX, not because AVX was so terrible. No, it was, but because it like finished a story. It finished that part of Hope's story badly and totally with no respect to how it was conceived. AVX. Yeah, and so that's a good jumping off point because it like explained things and it was satisfying.
Did you see the Eagles player was caught reading a book and it blew up? Imagine if it was a comic book collected edition. Only sophisticated people read. I'd love to see a football player out in the field sitting on the bench reading an omnibus. That would be awesome. And my luck, it'll be Squirrel Girl. Damn it.
One of the best Marvel omnibuses. You can't go wrong.
What would an X-Men It's Always Darkest Before the Dawn Omni version? Iron Fist, the Defenders. Yeah, I think it would put I would love to see something like First Class in there too. Just to put First Class in an omnibus. I know you don't agree with that.
No, I want it, but Marvel doesn't have a great track record for like mixing YA stuff with classic stuff.
I love that book. It's so Jeff Parker.
Yeah, underrated. I like it too.
Love it. Matt, and put it there with those issues. Yeah, I'd like that.
But I think Patricio has a good point there that there are some things that have been abandoned by the kind of Claremont and Canny omnibuses that we can't ever really go back and fix that happened after that, like that issue of Iron Fist that really could be there. So you could do all of the Darkest Before the Dawn epic and everything in both of those Marvel Masterworks, and then you could like sneak in a couple of extra X-Men appearances from the beginning of the Claremont era that are just never going to be in the Claremont omnibuses because the ship has sailed.
Or you could just wait for Peter's expanded omnibus edition so you can get all the cash.
Kill me.
Whedon's run on Astonishing was really good as well. I agree. Space Goes by Papose is fire. Mapping out collections is fun. I've been working on custom trade paperbacks for Sonic, UK Sonic, the comic. My daughter has this amazing custom omnibus, two of them, of the Archie Mega Man comics because she loves Mega Man. And mapping that that was really fun, like putting it together and all that. Back when it came out, I jumped originally off X-Men here in Finland when they all got turned to crystal. Oh, Age of Apocalypse. That's what you're talking about. Remember? That was the Mcron crystal, right?
They successfully convinced them that the X-Men were dead. And they're like, well, that's it. All the titles got canceled. I guess we're done.
That was the idea, remember? Oh, how fun would it have been to not know anything about X-Men switching titles? I remember the original idea was to call it the Mutants. Uncanny Mutants and the Mutants, right? Basing it on what Stan Lee wanted to originally call the X-Men.
Yeah.
The iBoy Omnibus. Omar, is there a short list? Oh, yes. There's only like two choices. Like, because I kind of want to limit myself on Patreon, like what choices it would be. Caught reading a book like it's a crime these days. Yeah, AJ Brown read some self-help book and it became a top seller. I love when things like that happen. I remember The Sopranos. Carmela was reading a book, and was it Tales of a Geisha, I think? And then, like the next day, it was the Amazon like #1 seller because Sopranos come on Sunday nights. Marvel team up, the unsquirrelable, unreadable. Jess likes to call it the unreadable Squirrel Girl. Similar to the upcoming Cosmic X-Men Omni, are there other locations that would make sense for an omnibus? Mojoverse, Savage Land, Alcatraz. That's your there's your Matt Fraction omnibus, the Alcatraz era of X-Men, the Outback era. Everybody will think we'll have a steakhouse variant cover.
Omar, speaking of sort of Outback era, wait until you read this new Rogue the Savage Land miniseries from Tim Seeley. People, I don't like retcon nonsense, but I read #1 this week. It's like fills in the gaps around 269. Tim Seeley has her voice perfect. It's like, it's what you've always wanted. You're going to love it so, so much. Everybody on my stream, I was like, am I the only, is it weird that I like this? And everybody in the comments said that they liked it. I think it's like a surprise hit.
Really?
Yeah.
I heard all these solo series are good. People were going on and on about Storm. So I can't
wait until you read Storm number 4 out last week. Woo! Woo! Woo!
Oh, I can't wait. Let's see. Rogue. Oh, when?
Map my rogue, baby.
Yes.
Rogue's my map.
Love it. I just got knowledge from a secret source, James, that Squirrel Girl in fact beat Wolverine. F that hairy man. He's got nothing on her. Thanks, James. Yeah, thanks for that, James. I appreciate that. And that's all Bar needed to know. Alan Davis should have his own Marvel Omni.
Agreed. My favorite artist of all time.
Little behind the scenes. I messed that up. That one's on me. When I was going to announce Excalibur Omnibus Volume 1, it was going to be Excalibur by Chris Claremont and Alan Davis.
Oh, okay.
I looked at the mapping and I thought, I think we're past that era where people are getting creator-centric books. I really feel like I emailed David. And I remember I tell this story all the time, and I'm sorry if you heard it. I'm just like my father, very repetitive with my stories. But I remember it took me so long to like hit the send button because I was afraid that, you know, I was going to step on toes. I was like, instead of doing a creator-centric book, Claremont and Davis, do you think you could do like a volume 1? I guarantee it would sell just as well as a Alan Davis and Claremont omnibus. And I remember like it took me, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes to hit send. And immediately David replied back, was like, that's a good idea. Yeah, let's do that. And now we got 3. And who knows, maybe 4 one day to wrap up that era. And then Amanda Sefton omnibus one day. So that one's on me. I'm so sorry. Sort of. It would have been just Excalibur, right? Not everything that he did at Marvel. Storm is an S-tier character so if her series wasn't good, that would be saddening. I tried rereading Frank Miller's Elektra. Does anyone feel like he was just trying to be Grant Morrison and just failed so hard? But that came years before.
Well, I mean, Grant Morrison existed at that time.
Yes, he was, but like they were born, but
no, they were on Animal Man.
They were at 2000 AD writing Judge Dredd at the time. I don't think Animal Man was out at that time. 80, what was that? No. 80, no, hold on.
It's close. It's pretty close.
I thought Elektra was 87.
Oh, is Elektra 80?
Yeah, Elektra lives again, I assume, right? Rusty Collins, man after my own heart. Yes. Oh, I love Carlos Pacheco. I'm just glad they added the Space Starjammers miniseries because it's beautiful. Uncanny X-Men 213 has to be one of the best drawn issues of that time period.
We talked about that in our top 10 X-Men issues of all time stream.
Love that issue. Beautiful artwork. A cover. Thoughts on the Crow Show? I like that. I like that era. I don't know how Peter feels, but I like that era.
There's really not many bad comics that you can read from all of X-Men from 2010 to 2012, other than Mark Guggenheim's Young X-Men. Everything was on fire. Peter David was on X Factor, Fraction and Uncanny, Mike Carey on Legacy. Like all the books were good. That Psylocke miniseries that Omar and I love.
Colin
Zeb Wells and New Mutants, which Omar slandered completely inappropriately during our Magic stream.
I just said it wasn't my favorite.
Yeah, there's really no bad X-Men book in that period. There's just not.
Hope we get an eventual Alpha Flight Volume 2.
Please,
well, I can guarantee you it would not be a Volume 2. It would be a Bill Mantlo.
And Jim Lee. And Jim Lee.
Jim Lee, you already know.
I mean, if you can put Jim Lee's name on a book, why wouldn't you? I think that's
I'm like, Punisher War Journal. You put Jim Lee on all 3 of your covers. Yes, I agree. Young X-Men was awful. What's some of the stuff after AOA, Age of Apocalypse, before New X-Men, that's worth sticking around for? Well, like I said, people hate Eve of Destruction. I dig it. After AOA was Onslaught, I'm pretty sure people know how I feel about that. Operation Zero Tolerance was interesting. I like the returning of like some of the characters that were in that book. I thought that was fine. Apocalypse the 12 was underwhelming for what was set up by Louise Simonson and Chris Claremont over a decade before that book came out. You know, setting up the 12 mutants, and then Alan Davis just kind of doing his own thing. They couldn't even use Havoc, remember? Because Havoc was over in that other Earth in Mutant X. So we had to use
for a long time, especially mid-aughts, like when the stuff was really undercollected and people were rabid to get anything. If you look at the conversations, especially in the early Tiger Eyes polls, people really wanted the Kelly and Siegel era of X-Men collected, which we eventually got in trade paperback. There were some of the last X-Men issues to ever be collected, which is the blue volume 0 and gold volume 0. It's good artwork, and it's a really fun era because they bring back so many characters. All the original 5 are back. All the Excalibur members are back. It's kind of like back to the cast that everybody and Maggot. So
but of all the characters, you could have gone with Cecilia Reyes, but you went with Maggot.
Well, but that's like the origin of Maggot, kind of in the wake of in the wake of Trial of Gambit. But I think that era is really fun, and it's not too weighed down by like resolving old X-Men plot debt. It's just like fun new ideas, and I think it's really underappreciated now. But for a while, there was like a year there when that was the most in-demand thing to get collected because it was such a gap.
Mutant X, I actually love Mutant X. You know, Howard Mackie gets a lot of hate. Do you know where that originated from? I feel like I left comics, and when I came back to comics, it felt like everyone hates Rob Liefeld and everyone hated Howard Mackie's writing. And I was like, what?
Yeah, I always thought of Howard Mackie as somebody who was like pretty with it, pretty good, pretty good sense for that stuff.
I think it was during that time he was writing some X titles, but I dug Mutant X. And was it Brotherhood? Remember, he didn't even add his name to Brotherhood.
Oh, is he the one? I've never known the answer. Who wrote Brotherhood?
I asked him, and he neither confirmed nor denied that he was Writer X. Is that what it was called? Writer X. I think it's because of his Spider-Man. That's what I because my buddy Ben said that his Spider-Man is one of the worst Spider-Mans ever written, which is funny because that's happening at the same time that John Byrne was doing his Spider-Man, right? People did not. Thank you, Jesse and Aaron. Yep, people didn't like Howard Mackie because of his Spider-Man. Right?
Oh, maybe.
And immediately, I think that's what happens, right? It's like, oh, now Howard Mackie is a horrible writer, and I'm like, when did this happen? But I loved Mutant X. I thought Mutant X was a cool idea. It was fresh. I liked it. Get him out, you know, he did those last issues of X Factor with Jeff Matsuda on artwork, and Jeff Matsuda went to blow up doing animation. Funny that I said blown up because he did that Kaboom comic. Gambit's monthly book was great. Speaking of trial, Baby Niciesa, absolutely. With Steve Scrooge, right? Before he went on to do The Matrix.
Yeah, please vote for Matt My Gambit because I want to argue with Riley about a Gambit omnibus so bad. As much as I want to do Emma and I want to do Sinister and I want to do Magneto really badly, I want to fight with Riley about Gambit. So this is my personal plea to you. And Omar puts up the poll: vote for Matt My Gambit so we can argue over it.
I think that would be fun. Omar, when you announce Age of X-Men omnibus, Age of X-Men, interesting. I think that Nate is a mystery inmate X.
Oh,
right.
Well, and also have we ever addressed the fact that Magneto left half of his soul in the Age of X-Men reality to be Nate's like buddy?
That
was bad. It was a rough spot, but you know, you got to find the good.
God bless you, Red Ghost. 97 Maverick, and it had Bolt. Remember Bolt from X-Men Unlimited?
I have all those books in a rubber banded stack to bind. I'm ready. My body is ready for the Maverick epic
Jim Chung artwork. A young Jim Chung.
Early Jim Chung.
I got to meet at Heroes Con, and he watches my channel, and I was like, what? You're like one of my favorite artists, and you watch my I love when that happened. That was insane to me. He was like, yeah, you get to announce all those omnibus. And I'm like, oh my God, Young Avengers. Like, yeah, he's such a nice guy too. A Brotherhood omnibus.
You know what's up.
No, there's not even enough comments.
It's almost Tiger Eye season, baby. It's almost time.
It's James' birthday, and I told him he could pick 3 movies to vote from. And for some reason, none of them are comic book related. So he chose The Proposal, Bridget Jones' Diary, and Space Jam.
Wow. He just wanted to see you suffer as a birthday gift.
Chris Bradley, Bolt, that's right, who also went on to be in the New Warriors, and then of course has I did not like what happened in Weapon X, but that's for people to find out. Did Gene Ha draw more X-Men? Annual 3 looks so good. He did the Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix.
Yeah.
Which has beautiful designs. Never seen them.
It's so detailed. Last week read Historia, and Gene Ha's issue of Amazon Historia.
That whole book
is I love the whole book, but the Gene Ha issue is truly life-altering.
Oh, Patrick, I was with you. I wasn't a fan of what I think we were all expecting the twist, right? Surely this is Dark Beast from Age of Apocalypse, right? What's going on here? Poptopia epic. Need more Casey. That was an interesting. That was the leather jacket years. That's the Ian Churchill did the artwork for that, didn't he? Because Chamber ended up joining the X-Men during that time.
I do love Chamber. I'm pretty much a sucker for anything with Chamber.
Bring back Sammy the Fish Boy. Is this Chuck Austin?
See, I'm not the only Sammy the Fish Boy fan. There's other ones out there.
Possible. New Warriors. What's that? Ouch. You afraid of saying you dislike a book knowing the creators might be listening?
I want to know the answer to this.
No, I just said I don't like Bendis' X-Men, and I will.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like a new like when you're like going over the overview of trades that are out this week, and I know that you read them all. Do you ever have one that's like somebody that you've interviewed and you're like, oh no?
No, so overviews are different though. With my overviews, I never say like, this was god awful. I just kind of give you the pitch, even the pitch of things that I think are god awful in my head. Like, why would they do this? I just leave it to people watching the video to determine whether they're going to buy it or not. Now, if they're an X-Men fan like I am, you're going to buy all this crap anyway. But no, I don't think I've enjoyed anything by Vita Ayala. I'll be honest. Like,
yeah, Vita, I don't love the way they pace. I just their pacing is lost on me.
Whether it was New Mutants or whether it was Children of the Atom or that new, was it the X-20? I can't remember. There was another miniseries they did. I just wasn't a fan of. It's not that I just leave it up to people to decide what they want. I just kind of give you the pitch of the story. And if it sounds awful to you, then don't buy it. And if it sounds awful to you and you're an X-Men fanatic, then you're going to get it. So it doesn't matter, right? Like, it's just the way I am.
Also, as much as it's fun to see us like go off, and we all know it's part of the comedy of the show that we like really go off about certain people. It's never personal. Well, it's seldom personal. Like, I think Vita Ayla, everything I've ever seen them say in social media and when they write essays as back matter, they seem like somebody in real life I would be probably really good friends with. I don't know if they would want to be friends with me, but like, I just don't vibe with how they plot books, And that doesn't mean that I have like a vendetta against them, but I'm the same way with Marguerite Bennett. Marguerite Bennett's plotting, and she seems so cool. I really like her perspective. I liked your interview with her and Mark Silvestri on your channel, but I just don't like vibe with her. But I mean, there's tons. I don't vibe with David Pepose. I don't vibe with I don't vibe with Tom King. I don't vibe with all sorts of people, but it doesn't mean they're bad people. Maybe Tom King, he's a war criminal, but doesn't mean they're bad people.
Well,
Omar's just gonna let all that just go on.
Well, we're talking about things we like and dislike. Sounded like you like Joe Kelly's Spider-Man. Is that a fact, Jack? I like aspects of it, of course. I like the Grim Hunt. I thought that was a really good storyline. I really like the Rhino story that leads into the Grim Hunt. Hey, Joe Kelly, to me, like, people love Deadpool by Joe Kelly. I don't think he got Deadpool's voice right until he got 3 years into writing the character. I get it why people like it, but I wasn't the biggest fan. But I mean, when I do overviews, I do take it, seriously, and I do what I like to think is a professional overview of just taking myself out of the equation, no matter how I feel about a book, and just give you the pitch and show off, the artwork and the things like that. Like New Avengers, I think I did a pretty good job doing an overview of that, because I never say I hate this era of Avengers. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think you can tell in that video I felt like that, because I was genuinely hyped up about like the artwork, and it'd been a long time since I've read those issues. I actually said it was one of my essential reads that I think people should read it. Even if you read Avengers or haven't read Avengers, definitely read it and judge it for yourself.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's fun to be enraged for clickbait, but like if we're doing our jobs, even if a writer's not great, we can explain to you what might appeal to you about it.
Right, because I think there's enough negativity out there when it comes to comic books, right? And that's not what I wanted to do with this channel. I never wanted to have clickbait. Like, even when I've had plenty of chances to do clickbaity type of videos, I still don't, because I'd rather focus on the good. Too many other channels out there focus on negative stuff, and that's fine. And if they find success in that, then more power to them. I find it's more fun and a little bit more challenging to talk about positive things, even when it's something I don't like Battle for the Atom. It's got great artwork. It's got great artwork, right? There's a difference between hate and criticism. Yeah, I think when Peter and
absolutely.
I get together and talk about like comics and why we don't like something, I think we do pretty good at like explaining why we don't like something.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, if you want to get into hate, we could talk about Art Adams, but usually it's criticism.
You almost made me drop an F-bomb. Is it 4 o'clock already? Like, you're a monster. Who doesn't like Arthur Adams, sir?
I mean, he shows everybody with a little baby face.
Oh my God, he's a phenomenal artist, dude. There's damn it, you made me lose my train of thought. I hate you that much.
You're talking about the difference between hate and criticism. I'm sorry, it was too easy.
I think it's okay to be critical, but not pure bashing. I think that happens a lot too, because people don't know. And what happens with me, I realize it, is I have too much of comic book history in my head. So that's how I judge things, right? I don't judge things like sometimes on the merit of how good a story is. That happened to me with Mad Fraction's Hawkeye. Like, it's regarded as one of the greatest comic books of all time. And I kept looking at it going, this isn't my Hawkeye. This isn't Clint Barton. This isn't Natasha. But if I took that in how I enjoyed it the last time, I think it was for Old Reader, New Reader, how I ended up really enjoying it and seeing where everybody else is seeing, is taking that long history of comic book characters out and just enjoying it for the type of story that it's telling. And I have to do that with Tom King. Like, Tom King is notorious for doing that. Taking a character, a well-existing character like Vision or Mr. Miracle or Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern, and doing his own Tom King spin. And if you're a comic book historian or just somebody that loves to read everything about certain characters, it kind of pisses you off a little bit. Like, wait, this doesn't fit into continuity. You know what I'm saying? And that part of me stops enjoying things because I can't let that go, and I have to remember that. So, man, I went on a whole, that was a longer answer than you probably asked. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that.
Oh my gosh. You know
damn well why I use that's a small hint. You son of a bitch. That's not clickbait. Clickbait is like, Diamond's going out of business. What are we gonna do now? That's clickbait. That just, there's a lot of those videos I'm sure going around. Everybody's an expert on that stuff. I'm pretty sure Peter actually chose an Arthur Adam piece for one of his covers of our Magic Omnibus.
Because I know my audience.
Playing chess again.
Oh, I love trolling you.
Oh, Wolverine. It can't be worse than Daniel Way on it. Does X-23 Omni need prior reading?
No, it's the start.
Nope, that's where you would start. It leaves out NYX, but a lot of people hate that series. So yeah, you could read it and then get the NYX Gallery Edition. Which team wins in a fight, Wildcats or New Warriors? Come on. Wildcats. Maybe 3 Wildcat members aren't Spartan, Voodoo, or Grifter. Not you, Peter.
Zealot, Maul, Warblade,
freaking
Ladytron, Mr. Majestic.
Mr. Majestic. Yo, Speedball's gonna beat the crap out of Mr. Majestic all day.
I mean, Mr. Majestic fought Superman.
Speedball was created by the legendary Steve Ditko, and still doesn't know what his powers could do. That's how good he is. Speedball
is, yeah. I mean, it depends. Is Speedball in penance form? Because then he could take them.
King on Wolverine would be sick. Sure. I love NYX. A lot of people don't. When I made that video, a lot of people were like, I can't believe. Well, there's a reason why it's left out of the X-23 omnibus. Omar should switch up the overview thumbnails to thirst traps with Omnis instead. Alan Green. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. I like the thirst trap idea. Marvel should get a Crisis, a Chamber Omnibus, and Omar a Surge Omni. He'd be happy with Surge too.
I love Surge. One of my all-time.
What's your least favorite X-Men? Have we talked about that? Like, I hate Maggot and Gold Balls.
I mean, there's X-Men I don't get excited for. I don't really get Colossus. I mean, he's fine. I don't know.
I am strong. Yeah. Oh, he's awesome. I like Colossus.
I just feel like what a lot of them, when you look at their arc, it's kind of like, what have they gone through? Or what, with Nightcrawler, it's kind of like accepting that he's not a monster and that he's actually like this very debonair, filmic kind of Errol Flynn character. But I just feel like Colossus just doesn't really have an arc. Like, he's just there all the time. So I think of the classic X-Men, I'm not a big Colossus fan. I didn't used to like Quentin Quire, but I eventually came around on Quentin Quire.
Okay, if we're gonna go classic X-Men, who's my least favorite? Sunfire was always a prick, right? Like, does he still count? Is that still okay? Or you want like stuck around?
I mean, it's fine. It's it's a choice.
Like, if I like Colossus. I mean, every one of those X-Men had amazing arcs. Every one
except
of them.
For Colossus. Colossus' only arc is cheating on Kitty in Battle World and then getting in a fight with Juggernaut about it.
No. Mutant Massacre. He snapped Riptide like the most.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so he had one interesting issue in the first 200.
Slam dunk on your face, Peter. Where are you at now?
But if we had to stack rank all of the X-Men that Chris Claremont touched, Colossus is at the bottom.
Under Thunderbird and Sunfire.
Well, I mean, Thunderbird had 3 issues.
And you still.
It's a future video. Rank my X-Men.
I like Amanda Sefton being on top, though. Like, that's good. She was up there. Of the classics is Psylocke. The only time I ever dislike Psylocke is in Uncanny X-Men 219 when they find Havoc. And they're like, you remember that? What are we going to do with him? Strange. And she's like, why don't we do what Wolverine would do? Let's kill him. And I was like, what?
She's just trying to fit in. They let her be on the main team after almost putting her on New Mutants. She's just trying to seem cool to the old kids.
Okay, that's why I went with, who else did I choose? Okay, Sunfire was only.
I mean, Havoc is pretty bad in the Claremont era.
Yeah, I wasn't.
He gets cooler when he's on X Factor.
Kind of like dealing with his brother's sloppy seconds, and his Inferno outfit wasn't my cup of tea. I know a lot of people are fans of his Inferno shredded outfit.
Yeah, when are you gonna cosplay that? You should go to a convention with
dressed like shredded,
and she can be Maddie. One of her best
people have,
and you can be Havoc.
No, I will be Roberto da Costa. Omar in Crisis in no order. Who are your top 10 X-Men?
I have to have this prepared because people always ask me and then they catch me in a lie when I miss one.
Yeah. Crisis. I think you named yours. And I mean, no.
But then I left off Dazzler and people got mad at me. I'm like, well, Dazzler to me is its own. She's her own franchise. I don't like Dazzler as an X-Men member. I just like Dazzler.
Oh God, I love this question. Speaking of the Summers, what do you think? First,
love. You want to talk about bad X-Men or hated X-Men events that I love? I love Deadly Genesis.
Oh God, what? That story
sucked me up. Yes.
That's bad retconning.
No. It's the Summers brother. What do you want?
We got that already. His name was Adam X, baby.
No.
I didn't forget about you, Adam X. Neither did Fabian Nicieza.
Nicieza never forgets. Yeah, I love Vulcan, love Deadly Genesis, love War of Kings, all of it.
Oh, I'll go with
love Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire. I love that. To me, that is the definitive X-Men space arc. Dark Phoenix, what? No.
Wow. What the hell was the question? Oh yeah, best.
Is how much? Where in your top 10 is Vulcan? Number 5, number 4?
I don't know. Let's see. Storm. I'm a basic bitch, man. Storm, Wolverine, Rogue. Those are my definitive 3. I love those characters. But I love Longshot. Like, I legit love Longshot. I don't see a lot of people talking about Longshot. Are you gonna put Soft Serve on there? And I always misgender that character according to John, who's cracking open his G.I. Joe comics right now. Do you like Stacy X?
I mean, I like her because I like that she addresses a different angle of mutants and it's a little bit more mature, but like I don't know if I would die to put Stacy X in a book. I liked how Spurrier used her on Way of X. I think I like when all characters get used. Even my least favorite X-Men, I like when they're used well.
What do you think of Lifeguard and Slipstream then?
There was a Lifeguard story in the digital X-Men from the Ashes Infinity comic that was great. I was like, yes, Lifeguard. Not in print.
That Bon Jovi mullet, man. Okay, so those are 4 for me. Man, this is when it gets hard because you can only pick 10. And do I include New Mutants, right? Because technically Magic and Sunspot and Cannonball have been X-Men, right? Like, M's been an X-Men, and Penance have been an X-Men. Sync's been an X-Men. This is where it gets hard because I really like those characters, but though I put them on the final list, I like Mike Carey's team too of like Sabretooth and Mystique and who the Omega Sentinel, was that her name? Karima? Was that Kareem? Yeah, I like that too. Kitty. I gotta go with Kitty. She was great. Kitty, well, I still only have 5. Like so, Psylocke, but it's gotta be Psylocke, it's gotta be Quanon Psylocke. I can't believe I just retcons, I swear. Forge. I love Forge. So underrated. 7? Is that 7? Out of that era of like Marrow, and I actually kind of like Marrow, but Cecilia, maybe Marrow. Kind of like Marrow and what they could do with that character. Oh, Lady Mastermind. That's another underutilized character that was with them. Remember when Hepzibah ended up joining the X-Men?
I love that. That is so I like that weird little era. People don't, but I'm
gonna go with Domino. I'd go with Domino. I really like when Domino was with the X-Men for a while. And I like a little crazy, so maybe Polaris or Aurora. I love that. That's most writers write those 2 characters too, right? Like crazy. And I dig when characters like Tempo, which is something I've been wanting to see since the days of
Tempo is so good.
I go with that.
Steve Orlando used her a bit in his Marauders.
Yeah. So I think those are my 10. Tempo, those characters. And if I have to go with one more, because I don't, Firestar or Justice, one of those 2.
All right, if I have to do 10, this is just for today. It's always shifting because it's based on like if they've been interesting.
Wolverine's my top 3. I already had them.
10. Dazzler, Rogue, Emma Frost, Dust, Surge, Jean Grey, Laura as Wolverine, Rachel Summers, Chamber, Hellion.
Hellion. Did you put Surge on?
I love Hellion. I'm a big Academy X fan.
Yeah, Hellion was great. Marrow, Steam. Dude, she was a great fighter in the Marvel vs. Capcom 2, man. She was awesome.
Well, Marrow's got this really interesting story that they met her as like a little kid, and then she goes off in that pocket dimension with Mikhail Rasputin, and she comes back as like a revolutionary, and to her, Storm is a legend because Storm fought Callisto, and then Storm murders her, and then she comes back later and has to be on a team with Storm. Like, that's a cool arc.
Oh, man. And on top of that, Joe Mad made her like go from this kind of homeless looking chick to this really hot chick. You're like, when did that happen? She grew her hair out and she looks good. Did you forget me not? Yes, on purpose. Magma. Oh yeah.
I do love Magma.
New Mutants. I love that character. Forge and Nightcrawler. Yeah, I love Forge. Forge is so underrated. And then there was an era when we thought they were going to do something. Marrow had the longest stretch of being the most annoying character. Oh, I gave that title to Maggot. Do you think your dream of older X-Men being off the table for a time frame will ever happen as a limited period with big return? It could happen like maybe after X-Men 97 ends.
I think that Krakoa kind of was that. Like, I think the only way that I'm ever going to get an era that doesn't focus on all the oldies is just an era where everybody's on the table. And if you look at Krakoa and you look at like that Claremont lineup, they were kind of really spread around. It's not like there's any book where we were being beaten over the head with a cast that had more than like 3 of that like core X-Men. Even Duggan's X-Men team, it was like Sync, X-23, Firestar Marauders had Emma Kitty and Iceman, but then it had like Pyro. So I think Krakoa was that. I kind of got what I wanted, that it wasn't, even though all the oldies were around, no book was centered on the oldies. And that's what I want. Because I want, to me, the best X-Men era is always going to be an era that uses the most characters possible. And that's where a lot of my affection for Krakoa comes from. I want to see everybody. I want enough books for everybody with no repeats. And I have to say, the current X-Men era is doing okay. But I think we still could see a lot more characters.
No Gambit on either list. I think he's easily one of the most interesting. I never took a liking to Gambit. I mean, he's okay.
Yeah, he's kind of like a trash bag.
Trash bag. I didn't say that. Again, he does not represent the opinions of Near Mint Condition. That is Crushing Crisis. Scott's the best X-Man. Dude, I love Pete Wisdom. Pete Wisdom, I think, would be in my top 20. I like how weird and sleazy. He's my type of Gambit. He's sleazier than Gambit, and I don't know if I should trust the dude or not.
There's somebody that Tom King should write a miniseries for. Pete Wisdom.
Is he British enough, though? Do you need to be these days? I don't know. Duggan wrote the best Kitty and Marauders of the past. Oh, Kitty's been great. She's had a really great arc. X-Men 97, I will say X-Men 97 is the best Gambit. I agree with that. And no spoilers why. No Bishop. I thought Bishop would make my list, but at the end of the day, no. Omar's just jealous. You shut up, John. He ain't wrong, though. Gambit was my go-to. Marvel versus Capcom Kinetic card. Yeah, he was cool. Meryl was cool, too. Baby and Cortez Omnibus. Flats Canada. I love these names. No, Tom King would ruin Wisdom. He'd take away his mojo and make him weak. Give him PTSD, right? I like Krakoa, but because of the enemy. Oh, yeah. Warren is a big fan of Orcus. Mountjoy. Now, there's a Bishop villain that we need to come. That guy was creepy, man.
Tiger Eyes always with the impeccable taste.
Best X-Force writer. Oh, Fabian. Fabian Nicieza for me. I don't know about Peter.
I was almost going to just blurt out Kyle and Yost.
Oh, well, no, still
two very different X-Forces.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go Kyle and Yost. That's right.
I don't know, but Nicieza, it's almost like in my head, I classify Nicieza as like my favorite New Mutants writer because they're all the New Mutants cast. And if we're talking about murder X-Force, I want to read Kyle and Yost.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. I like the upstarts, Nicieza, but also
yes, love the ups. Oh, you know, if we include villains and favorite X-Men, Sienna Blaze, love her. She's so rude. She's such a brat.
Oh man, she got the same treatment that Maggot did in Weapon X. I don't want to spoil what happens, but she got that same treatment. Remember, she went over to the Ultraverse. She was part of the Exiles for a while.
That's right. Anybody who wants to send their complete collection of every Ultraverse comic ever to New Zealand, we can talk the shipping amount whenever you're ready.
Cyclops, Magneto, Jean, Magic, Quanon, Laura, Wolverine, Danny, Moonstar, Rogue, Cable.
I forgot Danny.
Danny's a good one. And a character that really, really needs to be in the X-Men these days. Nicieza was better on New Warriors than X-Force. Oh, yeah, because New Warriors. His
Tyler.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I need to do a Colin Yost X-Force reread. And now that, I hope, we get an omnibus of. Sienna Blaze is going to be my drag name.
Oh, no, you stole it from me.
Shinobi Shaw had promised. Then Daddy said, yeah, why did... Oh, that was part of X Factor Endgame. That was in the epilogues, right? Like where Shinobi's like, you're fired. I was like, oh, that dude's cool. I thought all the upstarts had promise. Even Graydon Creed, and then he ran for senator. I don't know. Whatever. What's up, Sam? How you doing, brother? More Ultraverse love. Where do you think Deadly Genesis would be collected? Gave away it's in that prelude to the War of the Kings omnibus. That's what it's called, right? The prelude to the War of Kings. It's in that one. Where would it be collected in omnibus format? It would be in the Ed Brubaker, Matt Fraction era omnibus of X-Men. Sauron, Stegron, Lizard, a bunch of new Dino villains to give us Savage Land. All right, let's do one more question and then wrap up because we're almost on 3 hours and I don't want to keep Peter up. So Phantom X is the best Morrison creation. Even though it's not the same, I kind of like Zorn.
Phantom X grew on me. I don't know if I totally got it over right at the start, but I really liked what Remender did with Phantom X.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, that giant-sized Phantom X, one of the best Phantom X comics. I love that book. The one that's drawn by Phil Noto. Game Master was an upstart. He was the guy that was in charge of the game. I know it's supposed to be no bad characters, only bad writers, but awful character. He looked like the what's his name from Star Wars.
Has he been in something recently? I feel like I've seen him in something recently. I don't know.
Game Master?
Yeah, I love that. I thought Upstarts seemed like it was going to be a much bigger plot than it turned out to be, because I feel like Fatal Attractions kind of railroaded that wherever that Upstarts plot was really heading. And I know it kind of like comes to a head in the New Warrior stuff, but I always thought that was going to turn out to be much bigger.
Here's a good question. What X-Men were you excited for but was let down? Every single time they restart X-Men, it like brings out the kid in me. I'm like, oh my god, they're relaunching X-Men, and subconsciously I'm like, why are you getting excited? This is always a letdown, no matter what it is. With the exception of Krakoa, I think Krakoa really lived up to what I wanted to see for at least the first 2 years, and then it wasn't until people like Cy Spurrier came on board and Al Ewing and Kieran Gillen that I was like, oh, it's back to being solid. I dig it. What about you, Peter? Were you ever like hyped up for something and then you were like,
I think actually I know I can be really vague on these sometimes, but I know exactly what the answer to this is. It's Brian Wood's X-Men in 2013. That was the all X-Ladies team.
All ladies.
It started out with Olivia Coipel's art. It was going to be so great. The first arc kind of didn't go anywhere, but we were like, okay, well, he's just warming up. Then it got interrupted by Battle of the Atom right away. And we're like, okay, well, let's just let him cook. And then it just never took off. There was a total failure to launch. He had some ideas that he was going to do this plot with John Sublime and he was going to make Rachel into a big character, but it just never really got anywhere. And I just remember, and he had come off of such a strong run on the end of X-Men 2010 that everybody was so hyped for Brian Wood to write X-Men. And I just remember like getting every issue and being like, it's going to start now. It's going to start getting cool. And then it just never really did.
Yeah. I remember, and that's part of the Battle for the Atom people are asking about.
Yeah,
because he did one of those issues in there. Yeah, that whole era though was weird. But I'm serious. It happens every time with me. I'm like, I get super excited, no matter what. House and Powers of X, From the Ashes. Like ever since I was a kid, I would get excited. Oh, it's a new X-Men era! Yay, new writers! Mark Waid is taking over X-Men. Are you kidding me? And then it's like, that wasn't that good.
I think I'm the opposite at this point. Every new era of X-Men, I'm like, well, this is gonna suck. I think
You're
because
that's actually doesn't suck.
Yeah, because I think I came back like right when Schism was happening, but I came back in the middle of such a good era with Utopia, and I was like, oh, cool, new X-Men books, and then Schism, and then Avengers versus X-Men, and it kind of just felt like they kept destroying everything I liked over and over again. It was like being on the beach and building a sandcastle and being really happy with it, and then the water knocks it over. So I think I just developed this defense mechanism for every new X-Men announcement. I'm like, well, that's dumb, and then I get pleasantly surprised. It takes a lot for me now to see an X-Men announcement where I'm like, okay, well, that's going to be great. Unless it doesn't have Kieran Gillen's name on it, and then I get to be pleasantly surprised. Sorry, X-Men set the bar low.
That's the way I should be, but I'm the opposite. I'm like, oh yay, I'm 12 years old again, and something exciting is happening. Yeah, Mark Waid took over X-Men for a bit. Yeah, that happened. Ed Brubaker took over X-Men, and I know Peter loves it, but I
love it.
Yeah, Jeff Lemire did Extraordinary X-Men. Yeah, cool thing though. I like their home base was Limbo. That was cool. I like that. I hate reboots and events. I'm constantly suffering.
Yeah.
That's the best way to go into X-Men.
Suffering.
But at this moment, I do want to say thank you to my wonderful. I don't even want to say co-star because he is the star as well. Because my goodness, doing these streams, I love talking to X-Men, but it's so much fun to talk to a really good friend of mine about, things we don't agree with or mappings. And so I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about himself and his website. And of course, his live streams that he has been doing recently. So Peter, who are you? What do you do?
Well, as we all know, I'm Crisis spelt with a K throughout the comic loving internet. My site, crushingcrisis.com, came from that thing that we were talking about earlier in the stream, which was, how am I supposed to know where to find Uncanny X-Men 306? And it just turned into having literally hundreds of guides to answer that kind of question for so many different characters and titles and reading orders across so many different publishers. So the site is mostly where you can find me, but I am back to YouTube just because I thought, hey, maybe I'm trying to cram too much Crisis lore into the Near Mint Condition shows. Maybe I need my own show for more Crisis lore. So right now I'm only doing new polls. I'm doing it once a week. I've done it for a few weeks running. So tune in on a Sunday or a Monday and catch that. And of course I will be back here on Near Mint Condition sometime very soon to talk about Marvel solicits. And then soon, folks, it's going to be Tiger Eyes season. And that is my favorite time of the year. It's the most wonderful time of the year. So you just wait.
So tell your friends or anybody that you see in the comments that's like, can't Marvel reprint this? Where's my Charles Soule Daredevil? To make sure they come back and vote, because that is very important. Jeff Johns for X-Men. Oh, God, yes. Not for Peter, though. He hates Jeff Johns and good artwork like Arthur Adams.
Now, if Jeff Johns brings Jason Fabok with him to X-Men, then we'll talk. But that's...
And Peter Wisdom. And Dazzler. And Soft Serve. Now we're cooking.
Now we're cooking.
That's it for us, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. You can go back and take screenshots of the slides, or maybe I'll talk to Peter about sharing them later on. But I just want to thank everybody for being here, for smashing that like button on the way out, or just smashing the like button here. So we don't know when the Marvel reprint poll is going to be. I know it's going to be after I announce these next set of books, and I still have to go through October, November, December, January of 2025. So we got a lot of books. Maybe by beginning of March, we can start doing some of those, and then we'll do the DC stuff too, because I love, even though DC doesn't talk to me, I still love handing them like, hey, this is what people want. And they're like, thank you. And they do whatever they want to. Time to vote for Kelly. I won't let them forget that and Guardians of the Galaxy by Brian Michael Bendis are still missing. So, I would have loved this. But Tomasi's having fun doing his own creator-centric stuff now. It's a shame, but I would have loved him on X-Men. On Cable, and Cyclops. I love that. But that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We are out of here for now. And